Ooh, clean.
Clean as a whistle.
Nice pair of scissors, John.
They're embroidery scissors.
But the craftsmanship.
See? Communism.
No money
Shared
exchanged
labor.
whatsoever. It was just shared labor
To
for
solve
the good.
that problem of the market
Yep.
without any monetary exchange.
None.
Just when I think you couldn't possibly be any dumber, you go and do something like this. And totally redeem yourself!
What is up, Internet? Welcome back. This is 3 averagely intelligent dudes discussing dangerous ideas.
That's right.
And
What is
today,
up?
we're going to talk about money.
Mm,
Oh,
money.
yeah, my
We're gonna
favorite
talk
topic.
Money.
We gonna make it rain.
Watch,
we
look
gonna
at
do.
this. It's raining right
It's
now.
raining right now. Do you not feel the money
Oh.
splash all over your
I
body?
see what
Splash.
you did there.
Splash.
Yeah,
so-
he sees what I did there. Splash.
Yeah. Anyways, what's up, everybody? How we feeling?
Feeling very well, sir. How
Yeah.
are you doing today?
Good. It's cool. I mean, I'm great. It's weird. We did back-to-back episodes, essentially, is what it
That's
feels
right.
like. We
Yep, just
recorded
recorded a
on
few
Thursday,
days
which
ago,
is
yeah.
weird. So
And I feel great.
interesting. Yeah, it's cool
Oh,
to be
excuse me.
back in the studio.
Hit a little bit of Biden
Yeah, a
right
little
there.
bit there.
You had a little bit of Biden in your throat right there.
But I feel great. I feel amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah,
we've been in
really
here
good.
doing a good pre-show. We got everything lined up. I feel amazing.
And it's cool being in a new studio again. Like I said, I'm really starting to kind of feel it out, and I'm really starting to enjoy it. So,
Yes, sir.
yeah.
So, yeah, like I said, we're going to talk about money today. And, we're going to talk about where money comes from. We're going to talk about how money works in the United States. We're going to talk about how money worked in ancient civilizations,
That's gonna be
or how the lack thereof, rather.
Yeah.
Yep.
And if you stick around to the end, you might just catch some tips on how you can make some money.
Facts.
Which, I mean, since we are living in money systems, that might be good to know.
Oh,
Yeah, we
definitely.
are within the system. Sometimes, you work with it. And
This-
sometimes, you learn how to make money.
Do you feel like you need money to live?
Depends. I mean, like if you're an Aboriginal, probably not. But you're also probably not watching this podcast.
Facts.
But I
Yeah.
feel like for the things that I want to do and the culture that I live in, society, it'd be nice to have some money. To do. I don't think you need it to live, but to do what I want to do in my life, yeah, I need money.
To operate within this system, it's almost
Yeah.
100% a requirement. Like, it's not quite there because you could operate in this system without money in some way. Like, you could. I'm not saying because you can do anything.
You have to work really hard.
But you have to work so hard.
Yeah.
You would have to work so hard to not.
As a matter of fact, that's the exact same thing that's what money did. Sorry to cut you off there, but that's exactly what money did, as far as I know. Like, money made it capable for us to. It's like a tool that helped us kind of get around everybody having to do their own thing. Because now there was something that you could exchange. I think I use this example a lot, but the horses for apples thing. It's hard to trade horses for apples because their values are different.
Yeah, facts.
Like to get enough apples for one horse would be a shit ton of apples. You couldn't even eat them before they went bad.
Yeah.
So you exchange this other thing that just represents the value of each item.
And
Yeah.
it seems like every civilization that we have recorded history of had some system of this, like a
Most of them,
barter
yeah.
system
You
or
have
an
to.
exchange of goods and services, like
Yes.
skilled labor. Because once you have skilled labor,
Mhm.
right, then it's like a division of labor. Once you have a division of labor, then you have like different people.
Like specializations.
Yeah.
Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, and as far back as, I know I say it every podcast, go Beckley Tepe. But as far back as
Göbekli
then
Tepe.
you had it.
It is the first.
Yeah.
Well, no, that's what I was gonna say too. It's like it's almost an inherent need because of how we all have our own special talents and things that we do specifically well, and so we accumulate different rewards based on these different skills we have. And so, like I said, we immediately had to trade those. If I'm a hunter and then you're a gatherer, but it's like I want berries too. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
I think that's probably a bad example because those societies were probably not really built on that type of economic system, but still, I'm just saying when you have two separate skills and they somehow have to transfer, like you said,
Well,
if I'm a horse keeper, I don't
Right. Well, it's really because not everything is valued the same by everybody. If everything was
too.
valued the same as everything else by everybody, then it really wouldn't be that big of a deal, because then you could just freely give what one person needed for whatever you needed. And it'd be, if you needed a horse right now more than I needed apples, I just give you the horse, because the value wasn't, but obviously the horse is not a one-time consumable item. So immediately you have value hierarchies. Some things are more valuable than other things. And I think money is just the way that we represent how much things are valued compared to other things.
It's the clock to time.
Exactly. It's just a way for us to measure
measure
it, to look at it, to make it something that we can use in our daily lives. Because otherwise we'd just be back on, the sun. You'd just be using the sun. And I mean, that's not like bad, but it's, complicated. I mean, you have to know some shit.
This is a cool little thing too to talk about. I mean, I would think we were going to talk about it later, but fuck it, I'll put it right here. It's like, money's just the measurement, though. I think we get so consumed with the idea of money, like the paper is like a thing, and it's not a thing. Like, you don't really want money. Money's not like the thing that, you know what I mean? It's just that's like saying I want a ruler. Like, I really want this ruler.
I want
It's
someone to
like,
value my labor and put a numerical value on my labor. That's ridiculous.
Well, you want the value that money represents. So you're always, but it's like money represents value, right? So that's all. A dollar has no value. It's just paper. But the dollar represents a little measurement of value, and you're always trying to get that value or make that value. And so people talk all the time about getting money or making money, and you're so focused on the money part. I think that's where you slip, because it's really about the value underneath the money
That's how you get it.
That's how you get it. That's what it's based off of.
It's like, because you don't, put the cart before the horse, as it were.
Yeah,
you have to make something valuable before anybody's going to pay you any money for it.
Facts.
So,
Or anything.
which is skilled labor again. So you want to get good at your craft. You want to be the best at it, so people value it higher.
I remember having this conversation before, though, and you hit me with the caveat. You were like, what about day trading? What about a stock trader who just sits behind a computer, or like it doesn't even sit behind, but
that's
skills?
Well,
Okay, but what about the guy who
like,
doesn't even have the skill to trade? He just gives his money to somebody else, so it's really not a skilled labor. It's just
he got that money somehow.
Someone,
because if he's
down
not
the
making
line.
the money with the day trading, then he's creating value somewhere and then getting paid for it.
What if his value is that he has
You're
a lot of wealth?
You're looking for an example of somebody who's making money but not providing value, which doesn't exist. Now, they might be providing value for only a very small, specific handful of people. So, like, a pyramid scheme might be providing value for the 10 guys who started it at the top.
Very true.
But, I mean, you're still providing value to somebody. And you're also providing perceived value to all of the people who buy into the pyramid scheme. They just don't know that whatever it is that they're getting isn't actually as valuable as they think it is.
Damn. You just hit on a really deep point there in the sense of perceived value.
Oh, yeah.
Also has a monetary measurement to it.
Yeah, that's a tough pill to swallow.
Well, this is why people don't.
This
is why people don't like prices, and like why I say you can't really control prices, because prices aren't arbitrary and they're not just set because of something. Like, I'm gonna make, like, people think it's like, oh, well, he wants to make 100% profit margin or whatever, so he's upping, like, charging you extra. It's like, well, yes, but you have to understand that the profit also, most people don't just pocket that. They use that into the business to make more of the shirts that you just bought or whatever it is that you're doing. So you have to think about prices as a way, it's a signal. It's a signal of how valuable something is. So, for instance, they didn't let hand sanitizer prices go up when the pandemic hit. The government regulated prices in a lot of states, and they said you cannot charge more for hand sanitizer just because more people want it.
Yeah.
Now, the problem with this is that it doesn't incentivize people who otherwise don't make hand sanitizer to start making hand sanitizer. For instance, if your factory could easily produce hand sanitizer with minimal shifts in equipment or something like that, maybe you make something similar at your factory already, or your manufacturer, something like that. If the prices go so high for hand sanitizer that now it's worth it to not just collect the PPP or whatever it is that you're getting and shutting down your factory. Now it's worth it to go in there and change your equipment to make hand sanitizer, because hand sanitizer is much more valuable. When you regulate the price, you're saying pretty much only the people who are already making hand sanitizer can make money from this. And even then, they're going to be upset because they're like, well, shit, dude, I could be making way more money for this hand sanitizer because it's much more valuable.
But how many people do we need making that?
It depends. If you're running out of hand sanitizer, then you might need a lot. Which, I mean, a lot of people were running out of hand sanitizer. Stores and stuff, they were running out of hand sanitizer. Not necessarily because they weren't making it fast enough, but because they didn't have enough people making it to coincide with the amount of people who were now buying it. So just the small amount of people who were making the hand sanitizer that's stocked on the shelves of Walgreens every day, or in all of the stores that sold out, they were not making it fast enough to refill those stores before they went out of stock.
Well, yeah, because the demand was new, though. You know what I mean? Like, that doesn't have anything. I don't think
there's a shift in the market. Right?
I'm not saying that it didn't work out. I'm just saying that the hand sanitizer market would have exploded had they let the prices rise.
Yeah, and that's my point. I don't think that would have necessarily been, like, beneficial to us. Like, there's already so many. I mean, there's already so many. I had no idea there were so many existences of the same product until this shit went down.
Oh,
and
I think a lot of them
sudden
are new.
people were like spray, and then, you know what I mean? Like, have you played around with this?
Yeah.
You go different
foam,
places. Like,
there's
some of them are
spray,
sticky, some of them are like I'd be playing around. I'd be trying to. I'm like,
Have you
"Ooh, I
noticed
don't
that?
like this
Have you
one.
noticed that
Super
shortly
alcohol-y or
afterwards they smelled like shit?
liquidy?"
You notice that? I noticed that a lot of places that I was going into, I would use the hand sanitizer, and it always had this very similar, like almost sulfur smell, like just like not necessarily towards like rotten eggs, but it just smelled really bad.
Just eggs.
It just it
or
just
not
smelled
eggs.
bad.
Alcohol is all over.
But
Yeah.
I just remember looking into that, and they were saying it's just from people getting into the hand sanitizer market, but with cheaper cheaper base materials. So like not everybody's Purell, basically.
Because still trying to, you don't need the inflation of the. So we're derailing this completely into like an economics conversation, but I mean, money is
money and
economics.
economics.
You know, they go.
It's
kinda
hard
hand.
not to talk
They
about.
talk about
when you
one.
talk
that-
It's
about-
robots
yeah,
and AI.
You know what I mean? They're
Yeah,
just
I mean,
there
like-
in that same vein.
It's
but,
like peanut butter and jelly.
But even the increase in demand is still an incentive naturally to get into the market, and that's why you did see a lot of people,
Not necessarily.
but still trying to cut corners
be.
because the
Depends
profit
on-
margins still aren't
Right.
like where you'd like them
where
to
you'd
be.
like them to be.
But nonetheless, fascinating though.
Either way,
Yeah. It's value underneath though, and I think you're right. And when you were talking about earlier about somebody is getting value, even if you can't see it or you don't perceive the value there, like you don't think that these corrupt little group of mofos should be getting money in this way. They would disagree, and they're making their money, and so I think it's really tricky in that sense. But
I'd say that the hardest argument that you could make for saying that there are some people who make money without providing value would probably be bankers
and theft.
Well, yes. I mean, because people like Robin Hood. That idea is not so bad.
But I mean, like you said, though, he's not producing income or wealth through the production of value. It's through the stealing of somebody else's.
You take value from here, give it to there. They
Well,
think it's new value to them.
They like the
It's like
charity side.
it's like pre-owned value.
They like the
That's not
charity
valid.
side
I
of
know, I'm
Robin
just
Hood.
fucking
People
with you.
don't like the stealing side of Robin Hood. They like the charity side. So
Yeah.
that's the appeal. So the appeal is not that Robin Hood is a thief. It's that he's stealing from these other thieves and giving to these underprivileged.
Yeah,
Mm.
they're
That's the
corrupt.
appeal.
Is the idea is that he's only stealing from the
Yeah,
bad
he's an
guys.
anti-hero.
Yeah, as far as I see, it's a story about a justification for theft. But
Yeah.
Facts.
Either
I mean,
way.
facts.
Yeah.
um,
Every story about like a hero going and getting revenge is like
That too.
it makes murder okay now.
Yeah.
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 Well,
Yeah,
I mean,
that's
they killed his
justifiable
fucking
reason,
dog and they took his
Yeah.
car. So
Yeah, John
You
Wick's
had to
allowed
kill 76
all
people.
those people.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, there is a really cool YouTube video where you can do a kill count and watch him kill all 76 people. It's
Yeah.
quite
I
impressive.
think I've seen you watching it before, and I was like, I guess.
Well, it was right after it came out, and I was like, 76 people? That can't be right. But when you're watching it, you're not like counting all the people he shoots and stuff like that. But when you see him just smash cut all of them into like a little 2-minute video, you're like, damn, he killed 76 people or something. That might not be the right number. I don't know. But yes, bankers. I feel like you could bankers and thieves.
Yeah.
That's a good one. Thieves.
But I mean, do bankers not provide value in the sense of giving you a place to manage and store your money?
Oh,
and
no,
to
I
create money.
I like
for
banks.
You and
I like
to
the
offer
idea
you
of
loans
banks.
and the
Yeah.
idea that you can like start businesses and things using other people's money and stuff. I mean, there's value there. But
yeah, I mean, there's ways for individuals to do that too and stuff like that. But don't get me wrong. Like, I'm not saying that I'm necessarily negative on banks. Banks are just a tool in the same way that money's a tool. Like, I don't think that banks are evil, but it's bankers be doing some evil shit sometimes.
Hey, Jesus threw him out the temple.
Yeah, facts.
You know,
Like, y'all gotta go.
over the history, bankers have been looked at pretty negatively in any other circle outside of banking.
I mean, a banker is synonymous to a politician to me.
Well,
You
in
know
my
what I mean?
generation of like millennials and our generation, we look at bankers as like, oh, the financial collapse. You talking about the bubble, the mortgage crisis? Like that's all people think about in my generation, because we had Occupy Wall Street, we had the bankers getting these huge sums of money. Like
But
from the
who
government.
are bankers, though? You know what I mean? Like, is this like the loan officers? Because the financial crisis 2008 was all predicated on shiesty-ass loan officers who were just... I mean, they had incentives built in from higher organizations and stuff, but the point was they saw this product that they can manipulate, and they were just...
Right. I mean,
You
they
know
were
what I mean?
knowingly giving loans to people who couldn't afford
who couldn't afford them. So
Yeah.
that's on the loan officers. But, you know, that's like bankers or anybody in the financial. And then sometimes you get mad at the people who are just investors, you know, and they're just investing money. And you get mad when you think about George Soros or somebody making $1 billion in an afternoon, you know, and you're
like,
just
what the fuck? How can that happen?
How is that value or, you know, measured, like equally measured and stuff? But so there's these different layers to that cake. And then everybody's always like, I hate bankers. But for me personally, it's the guys who own the banks. Those are the bankers to me. And those are the head honcho, like, bad guys, I guess you will. And I'm not going to say they're bad guys. I don't know them personally.
Yeah, I mean, like, that's the biggest thing.
That's the easiest point of corruption.
That's the consolidation of wealth. It's the nexus of power.
Yes.
It's where corruption can easily just happen behind a closed door.
Completely.
Yeah.
And literally overarching too. Like a bank has so much power.
The Bilderberg
literally
group.
almost more power than the government itself, you know? So it's like
because
talk about
the money is the foundational structure that underlies all of the institutions that we're talking about. So the political institutions, the educational institutions, they're all foundationally rest upon money. Without the money, none of these things actually run and do any of the produce the things they're supposed to produce. So that's the thing that makes it so difficult, is that like it's one of those things that's like a master key. Like if you can control money, then you could conceivably control everything, because everybody uses money for everything.
Yeah. I wonder how. I mean, I know we're gonna talk about it too, so I'm really excited about it when we get into that. Like, how did that come to be? You see what I'm saying? Like,
what are the alternatives? You know.
But it's so weird that it's so, like you said, it does prevail every system that we have, right? It's like kind of the fundamental system in which all the rest of them are built on.
It's even in your religion.
It's in your religion. It's in everything. Like, you're right.
It's in
you know, you can't even praise God without having to like shell some dollars for that or something.
I mean, you can, but on your own.
But
you can't be going and
not in the system.
They're gonna ask you for
the system is
like,
looking.
I mean, the church
because the
needs
church
money.
has to run. The church needs money too, just like anybody else.
Right.
And so it's this weird. But I wonder what it is about human nature that we need to measure value in that way. You know, like that is it's like it's like oxygen.
Well, like I said, it's because we all care about things differently. That's the only reason. Like, if everything was equal to everybody, then it wouldn't matter. But because you like a full black and white Adidas track suit more than I do, you paid whatever you paid for that, and I paid whatever I paid for this.
True.
And so because of that, the materials cost more in each. So there's a lot of
you
little
just can't work
things
together
that add
without
up to
that.
it.
You know?
Right? Yeah. And so that's
Give
why
each person their just due.
people tend to try to congregate around people who are more similar with them in mindset, behaviors, because those are the people that you have shit in common with. And that's how you have an orderly society, is when people don't do things out of the ordinary, things that alarm you and scare you and stuff like that. You know, I mean, like if you're all athletic, active wear people, and your homie comes in wearing some like overalls and shit, and you're like, you might ask him like, what's up with the overalls? Because like all of a sudden he's doing something that's out of the norm, and you guys don't value that as much as you do athletic tracksuits or whatever. So it's, I mean, that's a very weird example, but I was just trying to tie it into what I said earlier.
I was trying to follow it.
I was just trying to keep it online. But basically, I think that that's why we ended up having to, and I think that it's just because we tied it into everything, it became so complicated that we had to come up with some way to manage it. Like you said, with like banks and like financial advisors, like somebody to count the abacus or something. Like somebody's got to keep track of this shit, because it's a lot. But yeah, I mean, like there's some really cool documentaries that I've seen. They're a little bit older. They're by a guy named Peter Joseph, and he made these movies called the Zeitgeist movies. I haven't seen the third one. There's a third one now. I haven't seen it. But I
love that movie.
Yeah, they're good. They're good movies. They're just, they're full of information that you just normally don't hear about. And I went in and I cut out some clips and I put them together where he's talking about money, kind of where it focuses more on the U.S. That's where we are. That's where I believe he's from. So it has a U.S. lens, but basically the idea, he talks about like central banks, where central banks are from, what they do, why we have them, and kind of like where they came from, kind of answering the question that you just had. Like you said, like, where did these institutions come from? And he talks about that in the video.
Established monetary institution exists as one of the most unquestioned forms of faith there is. How money is created, the policies by which it is governed, and how it truly affects society are unregistered interests of the great majority of the population. And whether we are aware of it or not, the lifeblood of all of our established institutions, and thus society itself, is money. 1775. The American Revolutionary War began as the American colonies sought to detach from England and its oppressive monarchy.
His videos are weird.
Though many reasons are cited for the revolution, one in particular sticks out as the prime cause: that King George III of England outlawed the interest-free, independent currency the colonies were producing and using for themselves, in turn forcing them to borrow money from the Central Bank of England at interest, immediately putting the colonies into debt. And, as Benjamin Franklin later wrote, the refusal of King George III to allow the colonies to operate an honest money system which freed the ordinary man from the clutches of the money manipulators was probably the prime cause of the revolution. In 1783, America won its independence from England. However, its battle against the central bank concept and the corrupt, greed-filled men associated with it had just begun. So what is a central bank? A central bank is an institution that produces the currency of an entire nation. Based on historical precedent, two specific powers are inherent in central banking practice: the control of interest rates and the control of the money supply, or inflation. The central bank does not simply supply a government's economy with money, it loans it to them at interest. It is critical to understand that the entire structure of this system can only produce one thing in the long run: debt. It doesn't take a lot of ingenuity to figure this scam out. For every single dollar produced by the central bank is loaned at interest. That means every single dollar produced is actually the dollar plus a certain percent of debt based on that dollar. And since the central bank has the monopoly over the production of the currency for the entire country, and they loan each dollar out with immediate debt attached to it, where does the money to pay for the debt come from? It can only come from the central bank again, which means the central bank has to perpetually increase its money supply to temporarily cover the outstanding debt created, which in turn, since that new money is loaned out at interest as well, creates even more debt. The end result of this system without fail is slavery, for it is impossible for the government and thus the public to ever come out of the self-generating debt. By the early 20th century, the U.S. had already implemented and removed a few central banking systems, which were swindled into place by ruthless banking interests. At this time, the dominant families in the banking and business world were the Rockefellers, the Morgans, the Warburgs, the Rothschilds. And in the early 1900s, they sought to push once again legislation to create another central bank. However, they knew the government and public were very weary of such an institution, so they needed to create an incident to affect public opinion. So, J.P. Morgan, publicly considered a financial luminary at the time, exploited his mass influence by publishing rumors that a prominent bank in New York was insolvent or bankrupt. Morgan knew this would cause mass hysteria, which would affect other banks as well. And it did. The public, in fear of losing their deposits, immediately began mass withdrawals. Consequently, the banks were forced to call in their loans, causing the recipients to sell their property, and thus a spiral of bankruptcies, repossessions, and turmoil emerged. Putting the pieces together a few years later, Frederick Allen of Life magazine wrote, "The Morgan interests took advantage to precipitate the panic, guiding it shrewdly as it progressed." Unaware of the fraud, the Panic of 1907 led to a congressional investigation headed by Senator Nelson Aldrich, who had intimate ties to the banking cartels and later became part of the Rockefeller family through marriage. The commission, led by Aldrich, recommended a central bank should be implemented so a panic like 1907 could never happen again. This was the spark the international bankers needed to initiate their plan.
Oh, yeah.
In 1910,
Exactly.
a secret meeting was held at a J.P. Morgan estate on Jekyll Island off the coast of Georgia. It was there that the central banking bill called the Federal Reserve Act was written. This legislation was written by bankers, not lawmakers. This meeting was so secretive, so concealed from government and public knowledge that the 10 or so figures who attended disguised their names when en route to the island. After this bill was constructed, it was then handed over to their political frontman, Senator Nelson Aldrich, to push through Congress. And in 1913, with heavy political sponsorship by the bankers, Woodrow Wilson became president, having already agreed to sign the Federal Reserve Act in exchange for campaign support. And 2 days before Christmas, when most of Congress was at home with their families, the Federal Reserve Act was voted in, and Wilson in turn made it law. Now, the public was told that the Federal Reserve System was an economic stabilizer, and inflation and economic crises were a thing of the past.
Right.
Well, as history has shown, nothing is further from the truth. For example, from 1914 to 1919, the Fed increased the money supply by nearly 100%,
Immediately.
resulting in extensive loans to small banks and the public. Then, in 1920, the Fed called in mass percentages of the outstanding money supply, thus resulting in the supporting banks having to call in huge numbers of loans, and, just like 1907, bank runs, bankruptcy, and collapse occurred. Over 5,400 competitive banks outside of the Federal Reserve System collapsed, further consolidating the monopoly of a small group of international bankers. Privy to this crime, Congressman Lindbergh stepped up and said in 1921, "Under the Federal Reserve Act, panics are scientifically created. The present panic is the first scientifically created one, worked out as we figure a mathematical equation." However, the panic of 1920 was just a warm-up. From 1921 to 1929,
round
the Fed
two,
again
baby?
increased the money supply, resulting once again in extensive loans to the public and banks. There was also a fairly new type of loan called a margin loan in the stock market. Very simply, the margin loan allowed an investor to put down only 10% of a stock's price, with the other 90% being loaned through the broker. In other words, a person could own $1,000 worth of stock with only $100 down. This method was very popular in the roaring 1920s, as everyone seemed to be making money in the market. However, there was a catch to this loan. It could be called in at any time and had to be paid within 24 hours. This is termed a margin call, and the typical result of a margin call is the selling of the stock purchased with the loan. So, a few months before October in 1929, J.D. Rockefeller, Bernard Baruch, and other insiders quietly exited the market. And on October 24th, 1929, the New York financiers who furnished the margin loans started calling them in masse. This sparked an instantaneous, massive sell-off in the market, for everyone had to cover the margin loans. It then triggered mass bank runs for the same reason, in turn collapsing over 16,000 banks, enabling the conspiring international bankers to not only buy up rival banks at a discount, but to also buy up whole corporations at pennies on the dollar. It was the greatest robbery in American history. But that didn't stop there. Rather than
the most interesting thing that I thought about it when I first saw this movie was when he was explaining this. I was like, yeah, that's true. You know, like whenever you talk about the Depression or any sort of economic recession or everything, like at least in the past before the 2008 ones, they were either in the .com bubble, like unless they were specific bubbles, but they were usually caused by like stock market crashes. They always say like, oh, the stock market crash in 1929 ruined the economy. And it's like, well, why did the stock market crash? Like the stock market doesn't just crash. That happens over a period of time or over a short period of time because a bunch of people are making the same decisions to sell. And so like when you look into it, you find out like, oh, because everybody's was in the market on these quick call-in loans, and then you just quickly call all of them in, and then they have to sell.
Yeah.
And then that's the only way,
and then you just buy up you don't even buy them up. They just go out of business.
They have to just
go under. And so, like if they have any assets left, then you can buy them for cheap. But like, you're not even buying the corporations; they don't even exist anymore.
Yeah, that's true. It's true. It's an easy way to just mop them right out the business.
Expanding the money supply in order to recover from this economic collapse, the Fed actually contracted it, fueling one of the largest depressions in history. Once again outraged, Congressman Louis McFadden, a longtime opponent of the banking cartels, began bringing impeachment proceedings against the Federal Reserve Board, saying of the crash and depression, "It was a carefully contrived occurrence. International bankers sought to bring about a condition of despair so that they might emerge the rulers of us all." Not surprisingly, and after 2 previous assassination attempts, McFadden was poisoned at a banquet before he could push for the impeachment. Now, having reduced the society to squalor, the Federal Reserve bankers decided that the gold standard should be removed. In order to do this, they needed to acquire the remaining gold
rid of all
in
the
the
real money.
system.
Right.
So, under the pretense of helping to end the Depression, came the
We're gonna help you, but it's
1933
forced.
gold seizure.
This is
Under the threat of imprisonment for 10 years, everyone in America was required to turn in all gold bullion to the Treasury, essentially robbing the public of what
this is
little
why we gotta
wealth they
talk
had
about
left.
Bitcoin. You know what I mean?
And
Like
crypto.
because that's trying to make a resurgence of that gold bullion, trying to give you an option or an opportunity. Because that's why they got rid of the gold too. Because not only was it holding them back in their ability to just keep printing their own
And
like,
how they
system.
control it. yeah.
Right. But then also it gave us an opportunity to say, you know what? Fuck off, man. We'll just go back to using gold.
Yep.
No, you can't because all gold's gone. You know, so it's like we don't have anything.
Exactly.
The blockchain, yeah.
But
that's
blockchain
such
is
a
a-
cool
is a-
value that's been created now, where it's like
Trying to bring that back. Trying to
Yeah.
bring back. People think that Bitcoin's cash, and it's not cash. Bitcoin is gold. You know,
It's just like
Bitcoin
gold.
is gold, and
It's a finite amount.
and the way that it works and the way that it's developed. But people forget like that's the original OG measure of value. What's that?
1933, the gold standard was abolished. If you look at a dollar bill from before 1933, it says it is redeemable in
I
gold.
want to get one of those.
You look at a dollar bill today, it says it is legal tender, which means it is backed by absolutely nothing. It is worthless paper. The only thing that gives our money value is how much of it is in circulation. Therefore, the power to regulate the money supply is also the power to regulate its value, which is also the power to bring entire economies and societies to its knees.
So,
A number of years ago, the Central
Yeah,
Bank
there's
of the
supposed to be a
United
little
States,
pause.
the Federal Reserve,
but so yeah, that was like the first little section. Like I said, it kind of just detailed what you could say is a long-standing fight that people have had with the idea of central banking here in America. And I mean, he didn't really talk about it much in England, but I'm sure if the people of England could decide where they wanted their money to come from, they might not choose the Central Bank of England. Just a guess. But that's why I thought it was so interesting, like when you contrasted it, or when you look at the like Revolutionary War and Ben Franklin saying things like, oh, well, it was most likely because they wouldn't let the colonies have their own money. And then you find out that each colony had its own money. So like if some fuck shit went down in Mississippi and their whole economy collapsed, you could just be like, nah, we don't take that Mississippi money, dog. Y'all shit is fucked up.
Yeah.
Can't buy nothing with that.
Right.
But the same way we do with certain countries now. Like, hey, like if Venezuelan dollars were dirt. So it's like, why would you want any of them? But when you have a monopoly over the money source of an entire country, over an entire society, then what you say goes, because you got the money.
Yeah, and they said,
and the money's how everything works.
How much it's valued,
Yep.
how much who can have it, when it gets to come back or go forward. Like that's all within just a
little
snap,
puppet strings.
a snap of your fingers.
Yeah.
You can be like, give me all my money back.
comes back to bankers and thieves, because you guys, it's like why do those people seem like they're the ones that we go after when we think about people who don't deserve the money that they have? And it's because they get to control everything. So we naturally look at them and they're like, wait, so you print the money, you can crash our market at any time. You're in basically just like you said, everything looks like it's in cahoots. Anytime you look at a situation, and a lot of times there is the corruption there, but it always looks like it because you've got Bilderberg groups and you've got all these other things where it's like, oh, we're just going to meet in secret and not tell you guys anything, and then we're going to set all these rates and
laws. And
we're going to do some laws too. Yeah.
Well, and they keep you distracted with the idea of the laws and the government too, and you're so busy thinking that the president's the guy that you never stop and question like, damn, money though.
But damn, that money though. Like even the president need money. He
'Cause it's
needed
not
a bunch
even-
of money to get elected.
Well, that's why when Obama won his presidency, Wall Street was like, "Here's a list of all the people we want in your cabinet," and it was like, "Well, that's my cabinet.
That's gotta be the cabinet.
That's the cabinet,
If
done
I
and
don't-
dusted,
there's
Mr. Morgan."
You don't really get no choice. Yeah, you know what I mean? Those Morgan boys was on it. And,
I mean, them
Rothschilds,
Rothies boys
yeah,
too. You know.
for real.
Yeah.
That was a lot of what that other one, that Fall of the Cabal documentary, it's done kind of. It's very similar vibe to the Zeitgeist thing. I feel like she just kind of ripped him off, especially now watching this one. But that was a lot of her information too, in the same senses about how the Federal Reserve came to be about, and in particular too that agitation event I think is so key, man. About how they first have to kind of rustle your feathers or do something.
Yeah, they gotta shake up your
put you into a
civilization,
right? Put you into some type of panic, and in that panic, they can yank some power out of the system or do something
While you're
that they want.
frightened.
Right?
Yeah.
You know, and so that was just crazy to see that, because I heard some people got assassinated in that around in that time too. Like there's another bank here. Let me play with this video. We'll watch this and then we can talk about this one too.
The only two American presidents who tried to break down the power of the elite, beginning with the banks by printing their own interest-free, debt-free money, thus bypassing the Federal Reserve System, were Abraham Lincoln and John F. Kennedy. What else did they have in common? They got murdered. Now, why are the banks so important? What exactly is the Federal Reserve and its central banks? The Federal Reserve is the central bank system of the US. And in spite of the very misleading word federal, the Federal Reserve and all central banks around the world
just
are
found that out.
privately owned. They are
I did not
not
know that. The
government
International Bank,
institutions.
all of them.
They are owned by some
just
of the most
owned by people.
wealthy and influential
Blew me
families
away.
in the world.
Privately
Two of which
owned.
are close
Blew
to
me
the
away.
top of the power pyramid. The Rothschilds and
Pause,
the
hold on.
Rockefellers.
So that picture of the Rothschilds there, back up just a little bit. Okay, play. Pause on the picture. That one.
The Roth.
This guy
This
right
the
here is
one?
the boss, dude.
Yeah. So I would love if we could. This is a
dude, too.
somewhat famous picture of the Rothschilds.
Yeah, like one
in
of
a
the
cemetery.
very few circling around.
So there's a couple. I'm not gonna go say conspiracy theories, but there are people in this picture that you'd be like, huh. One of them is the owner of Comet Ping Pong, James Alefantis.
I knew you were gonna say that. I was like, Ghislaine Maxwell's in here. What? James Alphonsus in here knows the.
I think it's worth a quick Google. I know I don't want to go down conspiracy theory rabbit hole, but it's just seeing this famous picture reminded me that there's another somewhat famous person in there. You know, the manifesto kind of nasty website, like the 4chan, 8chan, Infinity Chan stuff.
Yeah.
One of the early celebrities is actually in that picture as well. She's like a young girl that was like an early celebrity in that like forum world. They got him circled in that one right there, you see? Now, there could be some debunking, but
Wow. Q, baby.
let me see this. Like I said, it might need to be some debunking here. Where's our picture we were looking at?
Hey, you think they just photoshopped him in? It's cropped.
It's cropped. So
Super
yeah.
cropped. Can't see it.
Oh, this is a different picture.
No, it's the same
Same
picture, but it's a lot. The actual side
These
is a
are
lot bigger.
Completely different people. This
Look
guy
at the
wearing
dude in the
green
left, the
jacket.
guy in the
Jacket
left,
and
and
the
the
black
those
suit.
are
Oh,
the
so
dudes on
this is the
far
right side.
Yeah.
So
the
it's
right
like it's like a panorama practically.
Just,
and this is like
you
the
could
other
probably,
half of it.
you can probably say like the Rothschild cemetery image, family picture or something,
Yeah.
and then get the real image
Yeah.
without any sort of Photoshop shenanigans.
Yeah, we'll see.
That looks like it from Getty Images, but that's from a Pizzagate thing.
But this is the full
I mean,
image.
that looks like the
though.
photo. Yeah, that's totally the photo. Because that chick over there is
Enhance.
still staring off to the left. I thought that was weird. I was like, she's totally not even looking at the camera.
Enhance.
Why are we trying to enhance it?
I want to see it closer. God damn it. I wanted to zoom in and see if there's no. Oh, here we go. I mean, you know what I'm saying?
The girl in the black dress that the man is holding her arm in the bottom left there. And I don't know how confirmed this one is either. We don't have to keep going down the conspiracy rabbit hole. But from what I've seen, that is that internet celebrity girl. Her name was Boxy with 2 X's. She had a stint as a famous forum celebrity, like e-celeb.
This is circa. Do you know a circa time frame? Like,
It looks like mid-2000s till 2010 time frame.
really?
No later than.
You have to think about it.
I mean, it could be like 2004.
I know what you're thinking. You're thinking that these people are dressed all old timey and shit. But I mean, that woman is in a down jacket. You know, like they're just old timey folk.
I just think that, like, has this been confirmed? Is what we need to find out that's him.
It's tough. It's tough to confirm.
Because it's just like I don't know much about that guy. You know, I don't.
That's why I was
deep down on it. But it's like I don't know why he would be
in that
fucking
photo,
with
yeah.
them. You know what I mean?
I was just laughing because y'all were like, "Oh, we're
Well, he's on the
we're
Forbes
gonna
list
zoom
of
in," and
20,
I was
you know, the
like,
most
"Why
powerful
did you
people.
Is
know
he?
what this guy
Yeah.
looked like?"
Yeah, the guy was on the Forbes. He was at the White House multiple times. Like that guy was popping. He was
and
on
he
the
owned this
Forbes
ping
list.
pong place.
Yeah, he was on a Forbes list. He was dating some guy who's like another huge name,
Interesting.
some other like big family thing.
Interesting.
No.
Yeah, they all know each other.
Yeah, he's super interconnected.
It's a small club at the top.
Oh yeah, facts.
Yeah, if you have
Facts.
a pizza
Like you said,
parlor
there's only about
downtown
30 of them in the
DC.
picture. 20.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a small club at the top.
It's very fascinating. Imagine being in that family, dude. Like, I just could only.
Yeah, you could literally just have anything you wanted whenever.
Yeah, but there's probably
Come on, man.
some rules.
Yeah, the family
There's
dynamic's
like
probably
That's
not
true.
as
It's
you don't
like a
have
royal
no
family.
friends.
It is.
You have
Yeah.
0 friends outside.
You're right,
the
it's like a
family.
royal family.
Yeah, facts. Exactly. It comes with, I'm sure, a lot of
controlling.
motherfuckers telling you what to do, honestly,
Yeah,
and what you can and can't be.
yeah.
Like, you ain't never heard nobody like, I renounced the Rothschild family and now I'm an actress here in Hollywood. Here's
No.
my tell-all book. You ain't never seen that shit.
Yeah,
You
there's
ain't
some
never seen
attractive
it.
looking women in that photo.
You
I bet you
never
some of
not
them want to
once
be actresses.
Seen them out here in the streets talking about, my daddy
Oh,
did
yeah.
this.
Cindy lost.
Yeah, you ain't never seen nobody leak a single, because they'll kill you first of all.
They'll kill you.
Yeah, that's
Because it
one
doesn't
thing.
fucking matter.
Yeah, they'll get you assassinated in a heartbeat.
And the Rockefellers. The Federal Reserve was set up in 1913 after quite a bit of opposition from the US government and some very wealthy people, such as Benjamin Guggenheim, from a very influential mining family, Isidor Straus, head of Macy's department stores and politician, and John Jacob Astor, businessman, inventor, and probably one of the wealthiest men at that time. The wealth of these 3 men in those days was approximately $500 million, which today would amount to something like 11 billion. These men were so rich they could not be bought, not by any bank. What else did they have in common? Apart from money, power, and opposing the creation of the US Federal Reserve? They all died on April 15, 1912, when the ship they traveled on hit an iceberg and disappeared in the cold ocean.
Wait.
The unsinkable ship. The unsinkable ship.
You're telling me that the Titanic was just so that they could murder 3 wealthy businessmen / politicians?
How you
How
gonna
else
kill
can
the
you get all
I've
three of them?
never heard this before.
How else are you gonna get all 3 of them?
How you
That's-
gonna kill him?
Why
Right?
were they all on there?
It was the
It's the
ship.
maiden
It was
voyage.
the, it was
Yeah,
the
it's like
prolific.
the
It was
most-
the craziest ship of the time. It
I
was
guess if you were
nothing
super
but
rich,
wealth.
you'd be there. Yeah.
Yeah, it was nothing but wealth.
I bet you
and
know
so
the Rothschilds were
perfect
on there, though.
opportunity. 3 of
Look.
them. You pay that dude. You say, "Hey, look, run that bitch into an iceberg."
No,
immediately."
I was gonna go a funnier way. I was gonna be like, "This is a great conspiracy, right? You just freeze a huge chunk of the ocean
right in their way.
right in their way. You just
Hold
get
it in their path.
freeze the ocean
That's what
right
they did.
in front of
That's
them.
what they did.
Geniuses.
Shot the freeze ray right.
Freeze
from the
rays.
moon.
Damn, Illuminati's
Right
smart,
from the moon.
dude.
Ice
freeze
man.
ray.
Oh,
15 to
damn.
1800 dead. But dude,
The bankers are smart,
wild
dude.
though, right? Wild.
Disappeared in the cold ocean. Coincidence? Let's just
I mean, not
say
funny,
the
but-
Titanic disaster was highly convenient.
Highly convenient.
The rest of the opposition
Yeah,
was
they didn't talk
easily
about that
cornered.
on the movie.
US Congress was bypassed. The Fed was created illegally, unconstitutionally,
On an executive
something not
order.
many people are aware of. Let's have a look at the visible top of the power pyramid. There we have the Rothschild family.
Famous pick. There
In
he is.
short, this family owns most of the world. They own each and every central bank. They own the Federal Reserve. They control the International Monetary Fund. They control the World Health Organization. They financed both parties of every war since the war against Napoleon.
Allegedly.
They financed the Bolshevik
Allegedly.
Revolution.
All this is alleged.
They financed Hitler and the Nazis. They financed the production of IBM's
they own all the
punching
banks, so
machines
they have
to. So
for
they
an
did.
efficient
Well, I find they did
prosecution
do
of the
that.
Jews by the Nazis. And they had equities in Exxon and IG Farben, the dealers of Zyklon B gas for the Nazi gas chambers. The estimated net worth of the Rothschild family is $500 billion. When you have that much money and power, you can poke the chest of the Crown
Another
Prince
famous
of Great
picture.
Yeah.
Britain like he's
I mean,
your
like
dick.
that's
he's
a
your
that's a
bitch.
famous picture, dog.
I mean, you don't poke the chest of a
body
prince.
language, dog, is just
Yep.
rude. I mean,
Look at the limp finger too. He doesn't even have. It's like
not
one of the
even-
ones. Like,
it's like,
listen here, buddy.
you'll do whatever the fuck I tell you to do, little
How
guy.
about that?
That's what it
It's
is.
just
How about
makes
you
me
go
like-
tell your
The
mom?
only thing worse is boop him on the nose. If he
Yeah.
would just boop boop.
Oh, that's funny.
I just every time I see some shit like this, I just think of like Bernays at the head of the table, just talking about how he just controlled everything in America. Like, yeah, just 90 years
Oh,
old
yeah.
eating his food. I controlled it all.
That was the
That
best.
shit was so
That was
fucking
the best. Who
spooky
did that?
and peak. Bernays
Bernays
in
when,
that
when they had
documentary.
him, he was like super old. He's
Talking
talking about
like
the
it's
thing.
like- yeah, he's
So we were at the
and I
convention,
told
and I
him-
told them that if we could use propaganda for war, then we could use it for peace. Peace was the
loves
big
it.
thing at the time. We all like to say peace.
You see what I'm saying? And he's just
Shoveled
smacking
like
his
mashed potatoes
Gotta
in his
insert
mouth.
that.
just straight dentured up.
Hey,
dog.
splash.
Yeah,
Renee splash.
Gotta put that in here. But you know, he could also be like, you know, we're gonna stick by you. You gotta stick by us.
No, look at that body language in his face. He's
His
going.
face?
He's going. You gotta pay me by next Tuesday,
Well,
or we're bombing both of you.
he definitely doesn't look honored to be poked in
No,
the
he does
chest.
not.
He
Nah,
doesn't
he
look
looks
happy
very
about
upset.
it.
And when you oppose their power and try to stop them from taking over your banking system by setting up a central bank in your country that loans money to you at insane interest rates that you can never pay back, so that your country becomes the eternal slave to the Rothschild banking system, as happened to every country around the world, you are either ousted or killed. Your country will be invaded and blown to smithereens in the name of democracy, supported by the mainstream media that portrays you as a dictator. The same applies to those who refuse to accept the almighty US petrodollar.
I mean, is she insinuating that these people aren't dictators?
She is saying that the reasoning behind all conflicts in the history of the modern world since Napoleon, she made it very specific,
She made it very specific.
have been controlled by central banking, and that if you do not accept, and she wasn't talking about internet, she said American petrodollar there. So now it's not just the international banking cabal, it's also the American petrodollar interests, which I guess are the same people.
I don't know what petrodollar is.
It's
but-
like oil-based, like
Money?
money and setting prices on barrels and things. And she's like, that's why we want to go into Syria. ISIS? No, man.
Nah, she's like, look, all Saddam Hussein did was stand up against.
And say, I'm putting
I
out my
don't
own
want my- I
currency.
want my own
I want
money.
to own my money.
It's not like he was, and then they labeled him a dictator. It's crazy.
Yes.
Nah,
Children
they
were
were
simple
definitely
people. They were.
I mean, they,
Well,
like
that's
he
what I'm
said,
saying, but listen to the way she tried to pitch
yeah,
this.
she's not mentioning the fact that they were also
Dictators.
dictators. And
Like-
like
Both of these things can be true at the same time.
also allegedly, we have to make sure that we say they were definitely dictators and they were allegedly killing their own people.
It's true.
I mean, there were a lot of dead people. That's confirmed.
And there was a lot of
How they
alleging,
died.
too.
There's a lot of alleging going on, and I'm going to just say that I don't know what the fuck happened, but those niggas are dead
Hey,
now.
what I was going to say, put me on whatever side of history you want to. I'm pretty sure Saddam Hussein was a dictator. But then again, that's what they convinced me of to make me go over there and fight a long-ass war for
True
them.
that.
So who knows? But
It's hard to say. It's like you have to do like basically elections just made it to where you have to do a very lengthy, expensive investigation before you can officially call somebody a dictator, because you have to prove that they rigged the election. Because Saddam Hussein was elected, like and they just keep it like Putin's elected, and then when he can't be elected, he becomes prime minister.
That homie of Belarus or whatever.
You get elected.
That shit was nuts.
And then everybody goes to the streets and be like, "We didn't vote for you," and it's like, that's not what the vote count says.
Yeah, Trump about to do it.
I think any of them you can look at, bro. Any of them you can look at. Ahmadinejad in Iran with the Shah and shit like that, and like their consolidation of power, the Saudi royal family and their consolidation of power.
She put Gaddafi up here.
I know.
That man took a knife up the anus.
Yeah.
I mean, and it's on film.
Yeah.
There's a video of that. You can see his lifeless face when it happens.
US petrodollar. Oh, and there's much more, but we'll leave that for another time. The Rothschilds are not the only ones dominating the world. They are just part of the 1%, the elite. Another family of great influence are the Rockefellers. They made their initial fortune through oil. That fortune led to massive industrial influence in American politics, the banking system,
There'd be some weird bank names.
and the pharmaceutical industry.
God, can we please do a pharmaceutical? I think we did it one time. We gotta redo that.
Yeah.
They founded schools and universities, leaving a huge imprint on what should and should not be taught to our children and students. The Rockefellers further expanded their tentacles of power into the medical world and into hospitals.
I think she's gonna get off on the tangent.
They now own the Rockefeller University with its Academy of Medicine and the Academy of Sciences, the International Health Foundation, the American Cancer Society.
These are the cats that are telling you COVID is a thing. Like, these are the guys you're listening to for your COVID information, for your, like, she even said the World Health Organization. Now, I mean, we got to do some backing it up to make sure that, but still, when you think about it, like, these are not government-ran organizations. Like, you think they are, but they're not, though. You know,
she's making a claim that basically everything is consolidated under a few families.
True.
Right. And it's like, that's not the most audacious claim, but it's also not something that's easily proven. Like, you can't prove that, like, oh, one of these... Seriously, cancer action? No, like,
well, no, as soon as she said
mean,
World Health Organization was owned by the Rothschilds, I was like...
Yeah, like, these are big claims. That's the thing about Follow the Cabal is, you know, she makes some big claims.
I think it's also, like, she's being loose with the language, like, in some way. Like, it's not necessary, because there's, you know, it can be complicated to find out who owns what when it comes to, like, things like corporations and stuff like that. And that's what a lot of, you know, like, the American Cancer Society is just a nonprofit organization. And that's a privately owned organization, I think. And, I mean, I'm pretty sure it is. And, so I think what she's saying is just that, like, but that company, like the American Cancer Society, is held within some sort of a holding company, and that holding company is probably held within some sort of a holding company. True. And it could just be that the people who are rich enough to hold these ginormous holding companies that just so also happen to own all of the other sub companies are these five families.
Oh my
which
God.
would make more sense.
Bro, when
like you don't control the micro, you don't control the ants to control the society. You control the institutions that the society operates in.
There's just a couple domes over these ant mounds, and it's like,
it just hit me like a ton
shift
of bricks when you were talking about that the banks are McDonald's. You know what I mean? They're not McDonald's the franchise, but McDonald's the landowner.
The landowning company,
right? And it's like them buying up all the land. If you didn't know this, then you should watch The Founder.
The Founder's an amazing docu-movie.
Yeah, it's like a movie.
It's like a movie, but it's so insightful.
Sort of.
Yeah,
but McDonald's owns the land on every McDonald's is built on, right? And so they lease you the land, and then they allow you to build a McDonald's on it. And so you own the building, but they still own the land. McDonald's is like one. I don't want to throw out a number and say the second, you know, but I'm just gonna do that here. The second largest. I don't know that for to be a fact, but they're one of the most megalithic landowners in America is McDonald's, because they literally, that corporation owns every single plot of land. So at any given time, they could just be like, All right,
McDonald's
well,
is done.
Get your fucking shit off my land.
I wonder how that works in all the foreign countries they're in.
Fascinating. Very interesting. Yep.
They own that
That would be
land.
fascinating.
I
would
assume that the government or whoever it is that they're buying the land, it's the same thing as here. You just buy the
Because
land.
they'll just be at like a fob.
Oh yeah.
In overseas in like a war zone.
Well,
I mean, it makes
I'm not
you think
saying
about
that they
like the
have to,
McDonald's,
so they could
Yeah.
still lease
like
it
the
out.
McDonald's in like a mall. Like, do you own like the whole mall's land? It's like on the second floor, so there's really no land under it. You know what I mean?
It's like a space.
Yeah. But basically, yeah, like they own the space they lease you the space.
Okay, so the company owns about 45% of the land and 70% of the buildings at their 36,000 location.
Yeah, so it's factoring in for all that international where they probably can't get around certain laws in certain places, and yeah.
Oh, too. So they you have to pay rent not only for the McDonald's thing, but the land that you're on too is rented out from McDonald's as well.
It's just like
Sick.
Ray Kroc's lawyer told him in the movie. You don't make a fortune by getting 4% of a 5-cent hamburger. You make a fortune by owning the land upon that which that burger is cooked.
Damn. And then this is so interesting because then this is what bred socialism and everything else, because it's always about that means of production. You know,
It is.
That's how wealth is really built,
is.
is owning some type of I mean, there's plenty of ways wealth gets built, but that owning the means of production.
I mean,
is, like,
that's
big.
kind of how when I wanted to go into the Inca stuff, we were going to
Crucial.
look at that,
Mhm.
like the whole idea that like these people had a monetary system in a sense of basically you give labor to the consolidated government or whatever you want to call the Inca Empire, and then the Inca Empire just gives you all the things you need to sustain life. And within that, system, they just had a hierarchy, and you could have a certain number of wives if you were high up on the hierarchy. You could have still hierarchical systems, and
Yeah, I mean, all systems are
all systems
hierarchical.
are. Yeah, like there was still like a central government too. It was just you didn't pay for things.
Really.
Mm-hmm.
And so how do you decide? So you just have to go to the government or whatever. I guess they probably didn't have like a government, like a parliament. It was probably just like the the royal.
You'd be surprised
family,
that
kind of.
it may not be as articulated as we have it today, but I'd assume that the structures are pretty simple. You have a place where the people who are all the wise men or whatever, the people who make the decisions meet and they hash out the decisions, and you have like a representative there that you can go and talk to about your issues and stuff like that. It's been like that since the ancient Greeks and stuff like that.
And this was also, not super duper long ago. We're talking when Columbus landed, within 30 years, this empire had fallen. But before that, the Inca started around like early 1400s or 1450s ish. So it's like they had a pretty good run. They had about a 100-year run before their last emperor fell. And within there, they had this really cool modern system. Well, not cool modern system. It's just like
For the
they just
time.
didn't use money. It was just interesting to me.
Oh, interesting to us.
So it's
but,
actually an old system.
the emperor. So it was a king though. They had a king, and he was sole ruler, and he was the most powerful person. But like you said, I'm sure he had a cabinet.
Yeah, if you want to go to my actual document.
I was in
tons of
there.
stuff
Yeah.
in there.
Did you?
If you go down. I got this cool blurb here. So we're talking about the Inca, and we're talking about their monetary system or lack thereof. So I found this really cool blurb. Unlike the Aztecs or the Maya, which are other just ancient civilizations around there, the Inca did not use beans and textiles and stuff like that to sell products. There's no concept of money in the Inca. They managed to create the largest and wealthiest empire through a highly regimented system known as mita. So from the age of 15, Incan males are required to provide physical labor to the state for a set number of days, sometimes as much as 2/3 of the year. They built public buildings, palaces, extensive systems of roads. That's the Inca roads. They're very famous. They linked the empire together with those roads, so it expanded. So this was all just feeding into their expansion, which was why they were so successful. In return, after you gave the government your mita, they provided you all the basic necessities of life: food, clothing, tools, housing, all that stuff. There was no money changing hands. Even if there had been money, there was nowhere for them to spend it. You did not have shops, markets, or malls.
Wow.
However, the Incan society did value the massive piles of gold and silver sitting beneath their lands. They used it for their religious worship and things of that nature.
The sweat of the sun. and
Wow.
silver
Correct.
the tears
Yeah,
of the
gold
moon.
is the sweat of the sun, and silver are the tears of the moon.
That's
Fascinating.
amazing.
Yes. Something else I learned about
And they
Inca.
didn't. It says that they didn't value.
No,
their
he's
money.
saying that's not to say that the Incan society didn't value.
Oh, because they did.
Yeah,
Okay,
it was
so
a
they
double
did fuck with
negative.
it.
Yeah, I
Okay,
was just jumped over it. Into
Yeah.
But another thing about the Incas that's really cool, they had a numerical type of system of keeping track of their history, but they did not have the written word.
So there's just number based, of recording events.
Knots on strings
to
simulate passages of time, transfers of labor, all these other things they had. And it's great if you go into the Inca Wikipedia, you can probably see images of
That's
this.
fascinating.
I can't remember the exact name of what they're called, but it's the way that Inca, and it's been lost to history too. That's the thing. The conquistadors came and they burned a lot of these records, but the records
or
exist.
not record
Holy shit.
was a method used by the Incas and ancient Andean cultures to keep records and communicate information. In the absence of an alphabetic writing system, this simple and highly portable device achieved a surprising degree of precision and flexibility.
So this was their idea of an abacus.
Essentially,
no, but
it was more of a record.
writing.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it was a record. It was like having a little notebook you would keep things on, except it
like
was
you can read. It
fascinating.
probably breaks down we were talking about how I don't forget what conversation we were having where every language has a numerical value to it as well. Like how the Greeks actually don't have alphabets; those are numbers too. You know,
Yeah.
that's not actually letters.
They're they serve the same purpose.
Even in our alphabet, each 1, 2, 3, 4 to 23 could represent a letter, right?
That's true,
So
yeah.
that's kind of how it is.
And,
count
yeah,
these
this
knots
is-
and that kind of.
And that
It
just
could be
all
it's like
these
a code.
things, yeah.
Yeah,
It's
it's
like
read it. Yeah, you read it.
I thought of it as Morse code.
Yeah,
I thought of it as
similar.
binary or
Yep.
some sort of A and
Similar.
B, A and B type
Facts.
thing.
So I have a quick question about this. Did the Incas? You said this was they started in the 1400s and stuff like that, and I know that they're more like Europe in the 1400s is not really comparable to the New World in the 1400s. But did they have any other goods than just life necessities? Did you have you had Incan jewelry and stuff like that? Because I'm just wondering if there's nowhere for you to spend any money and because based on the description that you read in that little blurb, all that seemed to me was just indentured servitude or just slavery. I don't see what the difference between that and then owning a slave is. You build somebody else's roads, you build their palaces, you build their public buildings. They give you food and clothing and shelter, and that's it.
Yeah.
And then there's no money. There's I feel like you just described slavery there.
Well, that's the same thing as debt. You're describing debt as well. It's
Yeah,
this
I
idea.
thought the same thing. too.
right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
I mean,
just
we
don't-
have the
'cause
same system.
if they have
honestly.
because she's ordained with she's got.
But it's the same question I was
tapestries
asking.
and because.
Is what? How do you solve wants? What do they do with wants? My question was pretty much similar in the sense of what do you you said they give you everything you need, but what if you decide, hey, I really
like one of those necklaces.
Yeah,
so
I want an extra shirt.
how do you get
I
that?
need
Go to
extra shirts.
go to the marriage tab because that really showed me with this Inca thing. I was like, oh, that's funny. So in the Inca Empire, they're talking about the age there, but it was typical for marriages to begin on a trial basis with both men and women having a say in the longevity of the marriage. If the man felt that it wouldn't work out or if the woman wanted to return to her parents' home, the marriage would end. Once the marriage was final, the only way the two could be divorced was if they did not have a child together. Marriage within the empire was crucial for survival. A family was considered disadvantaged if there was not a married couple at the center because everyday life centered around the balance of male and female tasks. They talk about this up there too, about marriage being like labor. And I've heard this in talks about the origins of capitalism before. They talk about marriage and the barter system.
I've heard this. Me
And
too.
things like that too. It's like an economic factor,
Yeah.
marriage. They use
Well, it's
it
a
in such-
transaction. It's a contractual
Yeah.
transaction between two parties.
Yeah,
Facts.
and it's forced labor though too. So it's like the contraction's almost like in a lot of different cultures. Like I'm now gaining labor. I have a labor thing now, so I can now have a farm because I got somebody who's gonna tend all my shit, or I got, It's just
I see what
answers.
you
So
mean. As
I'll-
far as in old times, normally you would just get a helper. When you marry, you would just get somebody that would do a bunch
It's
of
like
shit.
having kids. You know what I mean? Dude, having kids and owning a restaurant, that's free labor. you know. And so
you're not allowed to employ your kids at your restaurant.
Bullshit.
And that's technically illegal.
Other people are not allowed to employ your kids at your restaurant. You can employ your kids anywhere you want to. That's chores. It's not employment. It's chores. Go in there and wash the dishes. Those are chores.
Is it?
Dude,
I don't
are you
know.
kidding me? Like go in any small business right now, anywhere in America, your family runs the business.
The child labor laws
literally
too, are
Gary
real
Vee talks
lax
about
in
working
a lot of
ahead.
pla- The child labor laws are also really lax in a lot of places. So you could work on a family farm if you're 12. Like that's
Because it's not labor. You're not.
I
those
don't
are
know.
your kids.
I was just
you can tell it's like saying it's illegal to spank your kids, you know, because that's assault. It's like you could try if you want to, but that's a hard case to bring about. You know, you get to choose. So, anyways, my point is that's kind of what you're getting at too. Once you become married, one of the things that I point to often, me and Jessica talk about this often, is why we're in a good financial position based on a lot of people who are my age who are not married. And like that's the only thing. Like we have not made good financial decisions in our lifetime. I have not been good with my anything. For all accounts and purposes, I should not be doing as well as I am. Mm-hmm. But the only reason we are is because we've been married for 10 years. And so I told her, that's when we were sitting there and doing our goals, I was like, it's really not a goal for us to make X amount of dollars because we made that even back in the military. But that was just because we were a 2-income household, you know. So we've always been able to do that, and so it is like that. It's like this multiple, like there's something inherent about the fact that it's easier when you take two people's output and mash them into one. Like you only need one.
Yeah,
right,
and in this very specific system, which is based around labor and the division of labor and who goes and does the labor, as opposed to a marketplace where you're paying for a special tunic. In this system, now marriage is even more important, and they've taken it to the level of like everybody's gonna get married. We're gonna have trial marriages. You can go as far as because the state, the state is literally telling you like we want you to be a happy, productive piece of labor, and we want your family to do so, and we want you to have kids, and we want you to do it back home, and we want your kids to be here at our capital getting training, and then going back home to expand our empire. Like when you get into the minutia of what the Inca did, the Inca roads, how they used to set up their shrines and temples, because they didn't have marketplaces. So they'd go to these new places with monetary systems, conquer them, and then be like, yo, here's our shrines, here's our temples. We're going to be nice to you, but we're going to rule you. Send your kids back here. Have some kids with the indigenous people from our land side of the Andes.
Yeah, we're
mix in your ethnicities.
Yep,
they used to band children's heads to get elongated heads to separate ethnicities. So they would separate, like if you were from this certain tribe or area and you were going to intermix with Inca, like the Inca who came and conquered you, they would like separate your ethnicities at birth, like with like birth tactics. It's crazy. They were a very interesting culture. Yeah. And the conquistadors showed up. It said, nice culture. And just wiped them out. Yeah. Disease, gunpowder, horses, all that shit. They couldn't handle that.
So was it the case? Would you say it was the case then that their value system was just different, where it wasn't like their regular people didn't want like consumer goods? I guess
they definitely were not a consumer-based system at all. It was more so about like.
Well, you say that, but then the you know like the people at the top definitely seem to have some nice looking tunics and necklaces and shit.
There was a monarchy, like kings and
That's
stuff.
what I'm saying.
Like he said, that was all. Those were all religious adornments and stuff. Like these were things that were used to denote your status, not I wanted this fancy uniform, or like, you know what I mean, like I get the fancy things in life because I'm like the powerful guy. This is like you wear gold so we know you're the powerful guy. You know, it's like,
I mean, I see your point. I see your point too. Yeah,
because I'm just trying to figure out how that worked. Because like you said, it was at a certain time in history that I know that there were things like crafts and stuff. Like it's not like before crafts and stuff when you were just a hunter-gatherer and everybody just worked together.
There was an economy tag that might give you a little bit better of
the Sapa Inca was conceptualized as divine and was effectively head of the state religion.
Well, I didn't want to go into
the will. Well, I mean, I think that pushes a good key to the situation here. Not only was this guy the ruler and he was just telling you what to do, but he was also your spiritual leader. So then you were also, we've talked about that, like how.
I mean, but that's how it always was. I mean, there was no difference between that and the King of England. The King of England's the king because it's ordained by God.
But you've seen how willing people are to work for free for their God. Like,
no, I know. Yeah, I mean, that's why heads of states have always used gods in the history
we're trying to
establish themselves.
We're trying to get to the nitty gritty of how did they what did they value? What did they want?
That's what I'm
right?
saying. I was
like
just
this
asking
is what
if
the
that's
states provided, and this what did they want. But if you're working for your God, then a lot of times you don't want anything. It's just honors provided onto you. Like it's I know you're asking him like John knows. I'm trying to help answer because John wasn't there. Neither was I, so I'm trying to read. And you're all
John,
like, well, what did they want?
Tell
John?
me how the Incans work,
Like,
John.
well, I don't. Who knows?
You went back there, didn't you?
You know what I'm saying?
I mean,
did you do any research for
the
this?
blurb?
My
My
answer.
and you're all like,
literally-
John, tell me right now.
My literal answer over here that I was thinking about before you kind of took over was like, this is a great area for us to do some later research. Like I was thinking in my head, like I want to know more about the wants and needs of the Incan people.
Yeah, dude.
And I'm like, yeah, but I don't know that stuff. So I was trying to read. But bro, there's an economy tag too, and like that one got me all super psyched.
And I
want
to get to that facts because
I just read all this. It's cool. But
Everything you were saying is the same thing I thought. I said, well, what if I get that. I was in the military, so I really get that. When you walk up somewhere and they're like, here's your standard issue, and you say thank you, and you walk away. All right? So now, but I'm like, well, in that situation, in that society, what if you say, hey, I need an extra jacket? Do they just, oh, that's fine. Yeah, here. Thanks. Here's an extra jacket. You're one of our most valued workers. You get whatever you ask for. Or was it like, you get what we say you get, move along?
Yeah.
And then, or were they a very, I don't know, reverent society where they did not care. Like you said, they were just like
you were like the jacket you got was just like oh,
yes,
thank
like
you.
They could have been a society that was just based on such gratitude for being a part of the system, or bought into the idea of pushing the kingdom as much as everybody else. So they were just doing their part. You know what I mean? I don't know. We haven't seen that really play out in a lot of communist societies, right?
The reverence for the religion or it might be more love for the state in some communist things.
Because, dude, North Korea, I've watched a lot of North Korea documentaries and stuff. Now, these people could be brainwashed. I'm not saying they're not, but listen to them talk about it, right?
Oh, yeah, dear
it's
leader.
Like,
and they look at them like a god. Yeah, absolutely.
You bring an interesting point in, though, about, like, where did they just get what they were issued and were they happy for it because it was coming from God? Or was it more so like, hey, can I get a red tuna?
Yeah, right?
My trial wife looks so good in red.
Red, like,
I would really love it. If
she has an elongated head because she's from the South Andes.
She really looks red.
Great in the red.
The red accentuates her long head. I'm sorry. I was just asking because, like, for certain I already knew how big the Incan civilization was and how vast and stuff. I was like, wow, I didn't know that that's how they operated their money.
Good point
and
to bring
shit
up
like
too.
That.
The estimations are between 6-8 million and 36 million. So most people think it's around 16 to 18 million people at the height of the Incan Empire, which was only 500 years ago and was not completely wiped out by the conquistadors in the sense of their bloodlines, but come on.
English Americans, but
this is essentially
not much of the English left.
This is essentially like the first come on, you gotta fuck with those laws though, Mac. The 3 moral precepts that govern their behavior.
Do not steal. Do not lie. Do not be lazy.
I fuck with that.
Damn, Inca.
I fuck with the principles. I don't like that they're laws.
I'm carrying knotted strings
because I'm like, look, everybody
everything.
in my tribe, I'm down to I'm down to have not lazy, not lying, not stealing people in my tribe. But it's a totally different thing when I'm like doing my own thing over here, which might involve a little bit of lying and stealing, and then the Inca come through conquering my entire thing. They're like, hey, you're not allowed to lie no more. You're like, but that's what I like doing. I don't say that lying's I don't like lying, but I think you should be allowed to if you want.
I mean, that literally is what happens to every single person ever since the dawn of time.
Yeah.
You're like ruling or doing it your way, and then somebody else comes to power and wipes you clean or whatever. Like you said, the Rothschilds wipe the rest of the banks away and said, we're doing it this way now. And you're like, thank you.
Yep. When the Rothschilds come in and crash your economy and then buy up all the...
I want some money, please.
Yeah. When the Rothschilds come in, crash your economy, and buy up all the McDonald's.
That's it.
You're done for.
You're gonna do what the fuck they tell you to do.
Take this McDonald's, bitch.
This is fascinating too when I was reading it.
While provincial bureaucracy and government varied greatly, the basic organization was decimal. taxpayers, male heads of the household of a certain age range, were organized into corvée labor units, often doubling as military units that form the state's muscle as part of your mita service. That is,
So
that's
they had
just like
enforcers.
South Korea making you go be
military.
like, oh yeah, you're going to go to college, but you're also going to
Spartans.
go serve in the military a little bit.
It sounds like they're saying that was like their Gestapo, like the enforcer dudes would come down and be like, "Hey man, we noticed you were exhibiting some signs of laziness recently. We just had to come by and just make sure that wasn't the case.
Yeah,
is that
muscle,
the case?
yeah.
Quick, Waldo, is that the case? Have you been lazy today?"
But then, like you said, there has to be something too where they're like, you didn't really earn your keep, man. You're getting one less jacket today. We didn't really fuck with your output. You're being kind of lazy, honestly. Like you said, there has to be some type of.
All I wanted to
'Cause there
say
is
was
hierarchy.
that
There is hierarchy.
it sounds really nice, but when you talk about 16 million people, I'm sure there's people in there that didn't like the way it was being
There's
done.
definitely some people who are just like, yo, I'm not getting.
Yo, I'm not
enough out
fucking
here.
with this whole
Yeah.
3 laws. Shit.
Yeah.
And I
This
bet
shit's
you
whack.
them Incans just on the spot chopped them down. Like, oh, you don't fuck with the Incans?
Were they
Yeah,
the ones that
I
had
bet,
like the
right?
obsidian chainsaws where they had like
I don't know.
Dude,
the
I don't want to make
extent
this an
of Incan
Incan
weapons.
an Incan episode, but I need to know if the Incans were the people with the
Look at that
obsidian
Quipu. Go back
chainsaw.
up. Go back up. Look at that Quipu on the right. Damn.
Damn.
And like they lost the ability to read those to time, and Spanish
Yeah.
conquistadors burned them probably by the bushel.
They probably had no
So I'm
idea what the
talking-
fuck was going on. They were like, "What the
shoveling
fuck's with all these
them.
knots?
Yeah,
just
just
burn them."
burn them. Burn them
burn
to the
'em.
ground.
No value to
Who
us.
gives a fuck?
Yeah. No value to us.
Yeah, just look up obsidian chainsaw. I just want to see. It might be the Aztecs.
Shots.
It's the
Right.
Aztecs. It looks like.
Is it? Yeah, obsidian.
Obsidian chainsaw.
Yeah, but don't put Aztec because we're
All right,
that's biased.
that was the first thing that came up, and y'all said chain. I was like, yeah.
Mayan. I'm seeing.
Makuchi.
Is that this thing?
That looks like just. Oh, there's a Macuahuiti. Sorry, Roberto Beltran.
Yeah, it looks like it's Aztec and Mayan. So maybe the Incas had them. I just want to know because when you said chop off, all
But
I
it's
could
like
imagine.
a saw, then really. It's like they would put sharpened stone into the
Yeah, they
wood
would put it
and
in this
then
wood
use it.
thing, and then they would use it to carve people up. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yep.
real smart. But they didn't have they literally didn't have letters.
Didn't need 'em.
Didn't need
I
'em.
mean, I feel like
You're making fun of them. That's
piece of
advanced.
No,
wood-
I'm not making fun of them.
That's what I'm
just saying,
saying, though. It's like I feel like a piece of wood with some sharp
Yeah.
rocks in it is way easier to come by than letters.
Yeah,
like
facts.
Yeah.
the evolution of letters was probably. I mean, like
They had no money.
because think about it, you're
they had
already
no
hitting
written
things with
history.
sticks.
Well, this is Aztecs.
Those are really
Aztecs had
advanced
fuck
tools.
something.
A stick with rocks
True.
tied to them is a very primitive tool.
Yeah.
That's what I'm trying to say. It's like you're talking about money like it's like this simple thing, but it's not.
Yeah.
Like it took a lot of smart motherfuckers to come up with the idea of money.
And corrupt motherfuckers too. But yeah.
Well,
Like you
it
said,
just
it
depends
wasn't.
on how
It
you
was
see-
smart mofo's, and then it was just like, hey, like you said, it's a
It
natural
was smart
choke
mofos,
point.
and then other smart mofos came by and said, "Hey, I could see a way to exploit this in a way that other people haven't. They haven't
100%.
noticed this."
Because that's one thing that I think is the difference between the Incans and how we operate today, right? Is exploitation is a part of human nature,
Yeah.
right? Like humans exploit things. Like that's just what we do. Like we're literally
we exploited the way the natural process works to make
get what we
agriculture.
want. Right,
That's
food,
humans.
water. We manipulate things.
We exploited the fossils
use
of
things,
dinosaurs
right?
to travel to the moon.
Exactly.
We're fucking
we
crazy.
manipulate
We
and
are
we
crazy
work
animals.
anything. So you can't take that away. We're always gonna try and figure out how to like work that shit and use it. And so you had to start thinking, how do I stop people from using these things for their own self-interest? And then so you create capitalism, right? Capitalism in the sense of now we want you to exploit the things, use the things, create stuff, make stuff, and then, you know, whatever, have a system to be able to do that as much as you want to and create value for yourself and everybody else around you. But then, of course, we have to put some rules
Yeah,
in
it's
there,
a
like
marketplace.
little rules in place for that to happen.
Yeah.
But it was just that, like, how do we work in people's need to exploit things, capitalize on things, right?
Yeah.
Essentially, that was always fascinating to me when I kind of made that. I was like, capitalize, like when you literally
Take advantage.
They hand sanitizer is now at the front of the store.
Right.
It used to be, like you said, inconsequential. In the back, third row, you had to go. Now You can't, like, it's there for you. They capitalized on the idea that this is a pandemic instead of saying, oh, woe is me or this and that. How can I take this shitty situation and exploit it or manipulate it to become of value to me? And I think that that's what capitalism is about. It's about taking whatever situation, good, bad, ugly,
and turning it to your advantage.
And turning it to your advantage, trying to make value out of it.
Or having a vehicle in which to do so, like a marketplace in which to share your ideas or do your things. That's what the Incans lacked. They didn't have a marketplace.
Right, they didn't have anything like that where you could do that. And so I wonder how that manifested in their society anyways, because you definitely feel like that was. Like, you definitely feel like there was people who were still trying to do the least amount of
I want to
work.
See their creativity.
Right?
And
that's what I'm saying, like their art and
shit.
stuff. Because that's one thing I do want to point out, though, is that because of the way that people have negative connotations about the way that we're talking about capitalism.
Facts.
Like what Adam Smith described, who's like regarded as one of the not founders of capitalism, but one of the biggest proponents and people that kind of flushed out the idea. He talked about what was called the invisible hand, which is what he referred to as the good that would happen in society as a result of people trying to better themselves, get themselves in a better position. So for instance, you talked about the hand sanitizer thing. That doesn't, by putting the hand sanitizer that you sell up at the front during a pandemic, that doesn't just provide value to you. It also, you did that because more people want it.
Yeah,
and if more people want it, they're looking for it, you made it quicker for them. And we all know time is money. So if they can get what they need quicker, that's value for them.
It's a win-win for them.
It's a win-win for everybody. And so that's the thing about capitalism is, like Walter Williams always says, or used to say, he's passed away now, but he said, I love that capitalism is the first system that we've created as humans that made it possible to become very rich and wealthy by serving your fellow man. Before, you had to conquer and plunder and steal from your fellow man to become wealthy. Now you can do it by providing things that they actually desire.
Yeah. Or you'd have to gain glory through the state. Be the best road builder, or be like the best general in the army.
Well, that's my thing.
Is that your higher ups and let them pull you up through this.
When people point to like a socialistic or a communistic society, or even the Incan one, like they always say that these types of systems are a cure to the great disparity that we see in our capitalistic society, because some people are so vastly richer than others. And when I look at it, I see the exact same thing happening there. I mean, the people who are rich are now, instead of businessmen, they're just politicians. They're just the people who are able to control the means of production. Now, whether or not that's just politicians or businessmen, those people who control the means of production are going to be rich. And people have this idea that, like, well, it's the workers that control it, but the workers don't make the decisions. There's somebody at the top that's making decisions about who works on what and who goes where. And if those people in a communistic society, those are the guys at the top, the guys making the decisions.
Yeah. There's still some meritocracy involved, and that's the point I wanted to make as well, is that
you can rise.
Yeah, even within a system like the Inca, which would be like an ultra rigid system, you know what I'm saying? You could still be the best at something. The meritocracy exists. Like you can't, by getting rid of capitalism, you can't. The Incans didn't solve the gap.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? They didn't solve like the person who's shitty at making a rock, versus the person who's the master stonecraft. Like they didn't.
Well, that's not the gap that I'm talking about. I'm talking about the gap of people who have a lot and people who have almost nothing.
Well, and some of it is based on skilled labor.
Well, so skilled labor. Well, okay, yes.
You're saying that some people were able to produce the skill, like they had the skills to produce more value for the state, and so they get the rewards.
If you think of like an Inca situation, right? Like imagine that. Like the only requirement is for you not to be lazy, but it doesn't mean like we value math more than we value stonework, right?
Right.
Like these things have equal value in our society because we're all
in it together.
Right. So I think that doesn't create so that it keeps that kind of in a balance, and then if you see somebody and you're like, well, this person isn't a very good stone builder, right? Like here in a capitalistic society, you got a choice. You can just be the worst stone builder for the rest of your life, make $0. Nobody gives a shit. In this situation, everybody would start looking and being like, yo, John's a terrible stone builder.
Maybe we should put him in the orchard and
exactly.
have him picking
like,
oranges.
Let's find a different place for him. He's not like a bad guy. He just sucks at this. Like, let's get him over here. Let's get him, like you said, let's give him a trial wife and see how that helps him. But that society would be far more invested in finding a place for you to be effective. Whereas here in our system, we don't have that because we don't give a shit. Like you said, I'm creating value for myself. If you're over there and you're not creating value for yourself, well, that's on you, sucker.
This Incan stuff seems real populist.
Yeah. Well, I don't know what populist
communism, that's always a populist
Well, just based off the idea that, like, everyone working for everybody else.
Yeah.
Like, national pride
Facts.
in the sense of, like, you know, like, lift your fellow man up, educate him, get him to be the best man. In this is, well, in our society in America, it's kind of dog eat dog, every man for himself in the free market.
And that's where I was going to bridge y'all's conversation, and that why everybody keeps saying, because they're not substitutes for each other.
They're not.
They're two halves.
Yeah, like you need them both.
It's the yin and the yang. You know, you need them both. You can't have. Remember, we were just talking about capitalism. It's built on exploitation. Well, exploitation, like you said, that's a bad thing.
Could be negative too.
That's a very terrible thing. You can exploit. You can exploit your environment. You can exploit your fellow man. You can exploit the government. You know what I mean? Like, and that's bad because then now you're manipulating it in a way that isn't helpful to us. You're not serving your fellow man. You're manipulating.
You're actually just siphoning value from one person to another. You're not creating anything.
Yeah, and then that's why I think like trying to create a win-win when we said that earlier, and then everyone's like, yeah, win-win. Like that feels good. You know, it's like you can't get mad at them when they're making money, but they're also helping you too.
Right.
You know? And of course there's perceived value in there, so that throws the whole monkey wrench because it's like, is Google helping you or hurting you? It's like
depends on how much you care about your metadata,
where you're at with it. But in a society, I wish that we see that where you were trying to exploit things and manipulate things, but you still had enough conscientiousness or whatever for your fellow man that you would in a society like that, where you'd say, you know, but it's important that this person's also effective or also has an ability or something, you know.
The invisible hand that you spoke of in the market is more of a actual visible hand.
It would be an overt hand. In the Incan Empire.
It's
like,
this
you
dude's
see
hand.
the hand, like he's controlling. He's making the decisions and deciding where things go.
Yeah.
But I was just gonna say that, like, a dictatorship isn't necessarily bad if you have a really good-hearted dictator.
Sure.
It's the idea that Plato had with philosopher kings. He was saying men will not be free until philosophers become kings or kings become philosophers. Yeah. And he's basically just saying, like, until motherfuckers start understanding that we're all human beings, you know, we're not going to get along. Yeah. And I think that the reason that capitalism was so popular was because it was a way to bypass the need for having such a benevolent leader. Like, we were just throughout history having these kind of really shitty leaders that we were like, well, what if we just let people kind of like do their own thing based on a couple of loose guidelines? That's basically all I was gonna say. Is like the overt hand is a little bit different because it has to be a really nice looking hand. If it's not, then you're probably not gonna like.
Yeah,
what
like
it's doing.
how do you exactly? And if you don't like what it's doing, what are your options in these kind of structural governments? You don't necessarily have options.
Yeah. That's true. Yeah, like in an Incan thing, you have the ability to become the best stone builder, but if they just need a lot of people building like stone things, then you have to be a stone builder. And it's like, well, I don't really like doing that. I'm more of like a counting guy. Like, can I count grain? And it's like, no, you got to do stone building. And so it's like what you want is you want a lot of movement through the classes, because it seems like we just can't get rid of the classes. So what you want to be able to do is have people be able to move freely up the class system and not have it be so concrete.
You can't get rid of the classes because the classes are built on the money, right? Like we said, like that's
not true at all.
Well, what does it mean to be poor, right? It means to fall on a certain level of.
Well, you're seeing class as a socioeconomic thing, but I mean, class is just a ranking.
You mean
thing.
Based on status, or like
status,
you could be a high religious or whatever,
right? Like if you're in the church,
like a
then
soldier,
you're high class.
Yeah, I feel that.
Like not necessarily
so
high
that's
class,
like
fancy,
like
but
just
because
are gonna.
I mean, even in Native American tribes, there were like elders that you couldn't like say whatever you wanted to, and
because that's just rep. That's rapport. You know, that's influence. That happens.
Jordan
anywhere.
Peterson explained this. It's literally older than trees. Hierarchy systems are older than plants, so they're just not gonna get rid of them.
It's the underlying value that we're trying to measure with the money, and like we said, that happens regardless
of if you have money or
don't or nothing. The value's already there. That's the reason we created money, so we can measure that value. And that's the same thing is when you look at it, the communistic side and all that stuff, the socialistic side or all that, it handles the collective part of it, right? You know, that's what's the enticing part of it is the collective value of what we all can measure as value: food, water, things we need. All that stuff is inherent value. We can all see it. We all need it. We all need water the same. There's nobody who needs more or less water or something. I mean, you know, relative.
Who
It's
gets
funny
the
you-
best
it's
water?
Well, okay,
It's
fine.
funny you bring up water. Water was what they built a lot of shrines and temples to.
Oh, wow. Yeah, see, because
Yeah,
they
it's
feel
funny you say that.
inherently
'Cause that's just important.
to everybody. So those things easily worked out in some type of society like that. What's the problem? It's the perceived value.
It's that fancy
that,
jacket.
It's that individuality
Yeah.
thing that
Mhm.
becomes difficult now. Because like I said, what if I personally don't like this or want that, or, you know,
Yeah.
and that's all perceived. And that's great in a capitalistic society where you said you can just make a jacket and say, my jacket's $500 because of all these other things.
Well, you have a
know,
market
that
to go sell it.
Sell it to. And I can convince anybody that there's perceived value or real, whatever. It gives you all that. So it's just a balance. I wish that there was a system where both of those things came into play. I don't really see it. I haven't seen it yet. I think some people are just like, you got to let it work into the middle of whatever system you're in. Yeah.
I've always likened it to, like we said, since we're not really arguing about which system's best, we're arguing about what things people value. I think that if you can get people to become more compassionate, then it really doesn't matter what system you find yourself in.
Facts.
They're going to take care of the people around them.
Yeah.
And so I think that that's really where I try to do my changing, is in the minds of people rather than on like laws and things like that and economic systems and rates. I'm like, you know what? If I could just convince this person to be a little bit more mindful of the other people around them, I don't see how that could be a bad thing. I don't see how that could be. I think that that's the one true solution that I've seen that I can work on in the position that I'm in now. So I try to just focus on that as much as I can. Just being like, hey, look, man, I help you out when I can. You know, when you're in pay it forward kind of thing. Like, it's pay it forward. You know, people have helped me a lot in my life. You know, you, our parents, everything. You know, just so many people, and so I'm just like, gotta keep moving that forward. Gotta keep moving that forward. It's, you know, it's the it's like they say, it's not the love of money, it's not the money that's the problem. It's the love of money. It's the greed. It's the wanting superiority. It's like having an idea that your jacket makes you a better person than me.
Yeah.
Or like that type of food is somehow better food. It's like it's
Or
food.
that, or, you know, and not understanding the difference between your perceived value and real value.
And real
so, like,
value.
understanding that your fancy jacket isn't actually more important than somebody else's food.
Right.
You know, like, it's not saying it's not important, and I'm not saying that, right? But you have to understand that that's just your personal perceived value,
Right.
and that's not as inherently concrete as, you know, somebody else
Doesn't
needs
carry as
food
much
and water,
weight.
right?
Yeah.
It just doesn't, you know, it just doesn't. And so it's interesting. It's an interesting conversation.
One
but
thing
I
I'm
definitely
going to
think the
do,
money is-
I don't mean to interject, but I don't want to get off the topic before I say this because it was
Yeah.
kind of funny, but it was like this idea that like now I want more gratitude, right?
Yeah.
So I want to, when someone does something for me and I perceive their value, like the value of it, and I'm like, well, that meant something to me. It had a value, right? I'm going to pull up my Quipu and put a little knot on it,
Yeah.
and I'm going to
Little
keep
value
track.
knot.
It's a little value knot that, you know, it's like,
I
I
fuck
might
with
not,
that.
yeah, because
Yeah,
it's
true.
like, well, John, I don't really owe you anything. Be like, well, there's Quipu knot here.
Let me tell you, buddy,
I've
I've been keeping
track on my Quipu knot. You might not be able to read this thing, but let me tell you,
right here. This is a lot.
you
of
did a
fucking
lot
shit.
for me. I'm trying to pay you back.
Yeah, it's true. It's interesting how we do that, though. Like, there's certain relations, and that's what I was talking about. It depends on their relationship with their God, or the
Do
God.
you value God?
Because, you know, think about all the things your mother did for you or whatever, but you can never, like, you don't think about paying her back monetarily.
I could never pay
or
her
something
Quipu
like
back.
that.
Could
You know what I'm saying?
imagine?
Like, and that's weird. It's in society, like, there's certain things, like, your mother makes these ridiculous sacrifices for you just
Yeah.
because, just inherently through nature, she does that. And there is no need or desire for this measurement of that value. You just know it's there, and it's reciprocated back in, like, love and, I guess, appreciation. And that's cool. And like you said, that is a part of it, that if you can just inject that into any of these systems, they all flourish greatly in that sense too.
I mean, shit, America is the, like, leading, it's like the most charitable country, I think, is like,
Got the most.
they do the most giving. But that's the thing, is like, if you got a lot to give, then you're in a much better position to give. And so it's about educating people on how to get to places where they can give and convincing them that giving is a good idea.
I feel that. Assuming that you're not running everything off the rails in your pursuit of giving, you know what I mean?
It's
Like,
true.
Like, it'll suck if we find out that we perverted all of these nations or people to get money and then say, well, it's cool though, we're gonna give back to you. It's like, we raped you. Now we're going to give back to you.
My
That's fine.
solution.
He rapes, but he saves.
There's Dave Chappelle. Great Dave Chappelle bit. Great Dave Chappelle bit.
How do you measure it?
I'm gonna move into my new economic slant's gonna be Neo-Incan.
Neo-Incan.
I'm gonna be a Neo-Incan.
I'm gonna want to
Then
read
you
an
might
essay
really
about
want to
that
get
'cause
into
I'm
that.
interested in
Figure
that.
out what it means, because you're gonna find out later that the punishment for being lazy is stout.
Turns out they're all rapists and shit. Like, damn,
if you
10 months of sodomy for you.
If we deem you lazy, 10 months of.
Oh yeah, we didn't talk about their gulags.
We don't know.
True. It's all fun and games when you're the guy getting the bread.
Yeah.
I thought it'd be really interesting to see how some money was made, you know? Because, I mean, obviously we've been talking about how money's come about in society and used, but I've never actually...
Like the how it's made of money.
Are we talking about paper currency too?
Like the
talking about
actual material
Yeah, the
of
money.
money.
Because, dude, that stuff is impossible to, like, fabricate, you know, because of the in-depth process, which is funny. You know, you got to think about how they had to come up with that over time. You know, you're just like...
Yeah.
With the plates and everything.
Immediate exploitation. Like, as soon as people are like, wait, you're just going to make paper money? Oh, I got paper laying around. Hold on.
Hold on, I know, Jim. Didn't you went to art school in Michigan, right?
We got
Okay,
tons of
Jim,
paper.
I'm gonna get you in here. I'm gonna need you to draw some heads and some fancy buildings on this piece of paper real quick.
I mean, they were fabricating the precious metal gold.
Oh,
So
yeah.
if you can fabricate
we went through a whole thing
fake
about
stone.
why they actually bit coins, and it is in fact to test if it was real gold, because
The
real
validity of
gold
the metal.
would leave in a dent.
Soft, and then
Yep.
the lead
Yeah.
would be too hard.
It would be
And,
hard.
and to clarify, the Chinese in the 7th, I can't remember the name of the dynasty. It's in my document if you want to click on it. But in the 7th
Tang,
century AD, was it Tang Dynasty?
Tang
7th
Dynasty.
century AD. Yeah. The Tang Dynasty are the ones who took their copper coins and shit and were like, let's carry some paper.
Yeah.
It'd be way
'Cause,
lighter.
I mean, dude, it was only a matter of time for somebody just walking by and they're just like, fuck, this bag is heavy.
These
I'm rich
copper
as hell.
coins. They say
They're
it
like,
in
I
there.
need to...
Not the easiest or safest thing to do it over long distances. In China, I don't know if you know about China. Long distance.
Long distance.
Lot
of distance.
a lot of long distance shit going on.
But imagine being a merchant. You got, like, pots and pans and
Not
your
only do you
whole
have
family.
all your merchandise, but you have your shop and your family, and you have all your gold fucking copper
And
money
then
and
just
shit. It's like heavy.
pounds.
Like
Not-
fucking metal.
Yep. Not to mention your mogwais.
Yeah,
Don't
whatever.
feed them after midnight.
Your mom.
Yeah, that's
The use of paper money remained in place for the next 200 years until a copper shortage and inflation from overproduction of the bills forced merchants and Song Dynasty government officials alike to issue and accept paper notes backed by gold reserves, the first legal tender in the world.
Yep.
None of
So
that
literally,
fiat currency.
literally, the first real currency in the world was because of inflation. They were like, our made-up money got inflated because there was only one
Yeah.
kind, and
Well,
so
the-
we had to make a different
Exactly.
kind.
Well,
and it's so funny. It's like when your money goes bad, the solution is, we got to make a new money. It's like, so when your money starts going bad, make a new money.
Yeah.
Just make a new.
Yeah, just make it. When your money goes bad, just make it.
Really, what you need is I'm sorry, I keep cutting you off.
Well,
Go
because
ahead.
it was like their money was too heavy, so they made paper money.
They pay
and
different
it,
money,
and
yeah.
it worked for a while. But then inflation, now they got to make a new gold reserve paper legal tender. So it's
Right.
like they're an evolving series of, it goes from I have piece of gold to I have golden coin to now I have a paper that says somewhere on this earth there's someone
Somewhere I
with some
have
gold
some
coins.
gold and you
And then
can
it gets
take-
to the fourth level, which is, well, nobody's got the gold. But this is worth what the equivalent of, I'd say, a gold is.
If I had gold.
If
This is
someone
what it
on
would be
Earth
like.
had gold. And now we have Bitcoin, which is, we can all see how much gold you have. It's on record, buddy.
The funniest thing is that in between those, you also had checks, which were like a different form of paper to say that somewhere there was somebody holding the previous form of paper.
Yeah.
Like, you could be like, look, I don't.
Somewhere is paper that also promises you.
Can you imagine
Which
if
is
the gold
somewhere else.
standard? Can you imagine if the gold standard was still around? You had to like follow all these things
Oh, that's
back
so
to get to
funny,
your gold, and you just every time you collect a debt, you had to end up at Fort Knox and be like, all right, I got all of these paper trail. Please, can I have my gold back?
Which is the funniest thing, because I think we've talked about this on the podcast before, that Fort Knox will probably tell you no.
No. No, you cannot.
Because there have been countries that have come up to this bitch and be like, hey, we have all these little pieces of paper, but we'd like our gold back. All right, we're done with this paper. We'd like to exchange these. And they were like, yeah, we're not really doing that
Yeah,
right
we
now.
don't really do that anymore.
And they're like, wait, didn't you? Well, what about our gold? It's not. You got the paper. I mean, you got the paper.
paper's just as
the
good.
paper's just as good.
The gold's heavy. You don't want.
You don't want that
promise
gold.
me.
Trust me. We'll hold on to it. It's fine.
It's
fine.
good.
And they literally just said no. They just said
And
no.
then everybody was like, "We're tired of carrying around anything." And they were like, "All right, we'll put it on a goddamn piece of plastic. Shut the fuck up." And now it's just digital. You know. You
Oh
don't even have
no!
anything.
Now it seems
You just pay with your phone.
weirder.
It's like
Now
a QR code.
Yeah.
And it's like
Yeah.
I think in one of the sections of the video that we didn't watch, it was like extra information, but he talks about how like back when he made that movie, the second one, there was only 3% of the U.S. currency was in paper physical currency. 97% was all digital.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's insane.
Our digital avatars are the one out there making the money.
The money.
They're the ones
Facts.
handling the money.
That's
It's
where
all
it's
our
all
digital
at.
avatars. It's in your apps. It's in your fucking chips.
Yeah.
It's all there.
It's literally just numbers on the screen these days. It's crazy. It's crazy. It's weird. And then, like you said, Bitcoin's only gonna
Just knots on a Quipu.
evolve. That's a new saying right there. We're just not.
Let's make sure I'm
So how do they make money?
I'm gonna have to double check it's
Yeah,
Quipu.
let's do
I'm
it.
fucking up. I'm probably fucking
Oh
up
yeah,
over
you're
that.
totally
Yeah, I'm totally
fucking
probably
that up.
butchering that.
There's some expert on Incan society like
Just
this.
screaming.
Just a big bale of cotton. It looks like. Oh, okay. It's pulp. They make their own paper from scratch. Of course. Wow, this dude's giving us the titles of lightning speed.
Yeah, he cut out all the talking.
I specifically designed this video for us to be the talk.
I got you. Wow, look at that.
it whips it into individual threads.
So that's the thing though, is that it's like paper, but it's like woven paper.
Yeah,
it's like
right.
textile paper.
Instead of
It's
what,
like old school
paper
paper.
is normally like mesh, like
Yeah, it's like
compressed together.
they
Maybe.
like pulverize it and
Yeah.
smash it together.
I feel like it. I don't know.
I don't know either. No, not a good thing. I don't even know how real paper's made.
Yeah.
Let alone money paper.
So they're already starting to put some type of image into it, and this is just they wove an image into it. Is that what they're saying?
Whoa.
Possibly.
Mm.
I mean, this is not like that's like natural colored fiber, like beigey.
Fascinating. Because they haven't even
Done anything.
done anything to it yet. It's just paper, but it already has some type of.
Like watermark. Yeah, there it is.
Oh,
It's
dude! Imagine this job. There's no way.
you gotta like inspect all these
There's
little
no
symbols.
way.
What?
That can't be the way they do it anymore. It has to be computers.
How old is
There's
this?
no way.
I want to see this again because this is
You just
like
have
I want to see
sit
it
there-
verified because if this is
Look, watch it. He's working, bro. He's measuring.
Quality.
They're all like,
They
all right,
just
let's
pull
get
out
to
a
work,
roll,
boys.
and they're like, yeah, this is good.
He's like, good. Oh my gosh,
Wow.
what
What was
a
that little
tedious
mark?
job.
did he find a discrepancy?
Yeah, he did. He circled it. He was like, hey, there's a misprint
This is
here.
fucked up.
Yeah. That's insane.
That QC job.
Like all night in your sleep, you must just see the pictures of that little bitch.
They chopped through that whole
thing
roll.
to make 3 new
One
rolls.
clean samurai swipe.
They cut a window in the paper.
Dude, they implement those little counterfeit measures through every step of the process. Here goes hologram stripping. It's crazy cool.
They're making some out of somebody else's money. This isn't the U.S. Treasury. and
No,
shit.
this isn't U.S.
Yeah.
No, this is not U.S. money. They would never show you that.
Yeah. Fuck off.
Yeah, right. It's in the Rothschild basement. They're like,
Stop. It's in the Bilderberg attic.
no
They're
visitors.
just faxing it back and forth to each other.
It's all just fucking. It's tattooed on one of their kids' back. They just lift
Look
up
at
their
this. This
jacket.
is like the randomizer. That randomizes
makes
it.
each pattern like different, I guess.
That's crazy. I love how other people's money looks. Like the Cuban
Yeah.
money is dope. They've got
Yeah.
like transparent sharks and shit. It's
Colors
badass.
and shit and stuff.
Yeah, our money's kind of whack, if you guys.
My money would have Gundams on it.
Yeah, facts.
And I mean, some of these countries are holding
Something
down
like
some
that.
massive production capabilities. Like these machines are intricate. if everybody's making their money this way,
that just looks like
this is
aluminum siding.
very intricate. Doesn't that just look like aluminum siding?
Yeah, but it's like all it is engineering and
feel
like
you.
some electronics.
I'm just fucking. I mean, it's all.
I don't even want to get in. We got to talk about engineering one day. I was thinking about that. I was like, man, like one day I was just driving. I was like, these motherfuckers just really be building these big ass buildings and like billboards. It started with the billboard. I was just watching. I was driving. And I was like, yeah, you know, like that's a good idea. Like there's just this open space. What if there was just this big sign here, you know, and you could display your stuff. But then I was like, but you get this idea. Where do you take that idea? Who's the guy you call and you say, I want you to make me a big sign. I want it to be 40 feet in the air. I want it to extend over this. I want you to build me a ship that gets across. You know what I mean? Like literally, Henry Ford did this and he put a bunch of these motherfuckers in a room and he's like, make me an engine. It's never been done before. It doesn't exist. Use math. Use your skills and knowledge.
It was a 8-cylinder engine
Fine.
that they made.
Fine.
There were engines.
Fine, but you see what I'm
Ford didn't
saying?
make
It's
cars.
the
Innovation.
ability to take nothing
Yeah.
and work angles to build an entire city.
Yeah.
Like civil engineering. That's a feat, man. And these guys only go to school for 4 years to, you know, figure out how to do all this shit.
When I was in
Like, what?
Mesa Verde,
You just
these people literally
Math?
built a 4-story tower out of stone rocks in a cliff hundreds of feet off the ground. Like they were like literally living in a cliffside in a giant like canyon.
Yeah.
And they just had these crazy city structures built into the side of this cliff. And I was like, who the fuck designed this?
Yeah, it's
Like somebody designed this shit. Like this is a tower. Like there's a tower here with levels and
It's
stairs
been going
and
on
shit.
though for like 10,000 years.
Since
Crazy.
the dawn of time.
Yeah.
Since the first
Yeah.
tool was made.
Since
Since
it's
literally
yeah,
the
since
first tool
the
was made.
exactly since we've seen like the first megalithic structure, it's been going on since then. Where it's just these engineers, whatever you want to call them, they through possibly numerology. They're saying they said the Inca had a decimal system, which tells me like, you know, 0. They understood 0 and 10 and how to move a decimal and that kind of thing. So
Negative numbers and shit.
yeah, they had all that. So that's how probably they measured, and they did the same kind of things you're talking about that they were doing in the Southwest in Americas, which is build these intricate things out of clay, these engineering structures where you're like, damn, who taught them that?
Yeah.
No, they just been doing it.
You just do it.
They just
Just
been
figure
doing
it
it.
out. I see this in you guys, though. I see this in you guys in the sense that you can just take a bag or something and be like, you know what, I want this to be something completely different. And your ability to, like, work that problem out, you know what I mean? And, like, re-sew this here or move this
like
here, chop
spatial
this off.
engineering
Yeah.
or
And then I think it's those people with just the ability to also do complex math to equate things. So instead of having to go out and build a 40-foot tower and seeing if it falls down and then rebuild you know what I mean? Because most of us who don't have that ability, we still engineer, but we do it through trial and error.
Yeah.
You know, we have to build it, unwork it, relearn from somebody.
Yeah.
These people can just draw it out, measure it essentially with the numbers and the math, and then say this will work. you
Yeah,
know?
like I know just
just
on
based off my math.
everything I know
Yeah,
about this that this will work.
right? And then now go build it.
Yeah.
And then it might need tweaks or whatever from there, but
Yeah.
still, just
Maybe
such
somebody
a
didn't build it right.
right? But it's just such a fascinating ability that, you know. And then one day it just hit me like a ton of bricks, seeing it all, you know, just realizing like civilization was all built by a human being. Like,
Oh yeah.
every single thing that you see out here is built by some person's hands and mind, and they were just like, all right, let's make these little keys and we'll create a little system that makes them punch up and down, and we're gonna make it out of plastic and mold it in this way, and it's just wild.
Yeah, money didn't do it.
Yeah, money
Yeah,
didn't
yeah.
get up and make the thing.
Yeah, no,
you know what
money
I mean?
didn't
Like
make
money
that
didn't make this thing. Money didn't make itself. I'll tell you that goddamn much.
I mean, look at all these
Look
machines.
at all these machines and,
and
engineers.
humans running them,
to
and
just
designing them. Yeah.
It's insane.
Packaging? They're packaging it already? That's the money? That can't be it.
This gotta go. It's gonna go to like a dyeing facility or some shit. Watch, isn't it?
Those are the
There go
little
your mech
things.
suits.
Yeah, that was the thing I was riding on, except
Yeah.
it could hold 2 full-size pallets on it.
Badass. And he was whipping.
I was, whoa.
I mean,
No
those are,
training.
Those are just
Just
like
get out
fucking-
there and do it.
They're
Go,
like,
to
here
the-
it is.
go to that fucking giant room full of bananas.
Yeah, that's definitely woven because you can't do that with like.
Paper.
I guess you could if it's that thick.
My man's slapping it around, though.
Yeah, have you ever? Well, maybe their shit's different.
My man's not even wearing a glove.
Paper
I'm
cuts?
like,
We're
oh
talking
my
paper cuts,
God.
dog.
It's the most.
Your hands gotta be so dry.
I never
Your
thought
hands gotta
about
be
that.
so dry.
Oh my God, that's hilarious.
is this?
Oh, you're gonna hand paint it.
Wait a minute, what's going on here?
Oh, he's just wiping the dye on the shit. But see, so they send it off to another place to have it dyed. Man, wonder how much a bucket of that shit goes.
That shit go hard. The color patterns though.
Yeah, facts. Damn.
Those are euros.
Gorgeous.
Flashy. How much you think this guy gets paid?
Let's put him at minimum wage.
Yeah, I know.
I mean, it can't be much. It's a.
I mean, is that
factory
any
job.
different than flipping burgers?
It's a factory job. It's definitely equivalent to most factory jobs, but damn. Like, that must be such a kick in the ass to know that you're getting, like, this is.
You're creating 1 million value beans a second, and they're giving you, like, 15 of
And
them.
you're just watching them truck along the line day and night by the truckload, knowing damn well that it's not even like everybody's money. Like, this is a man. This is a man's machine that he uses to print his money.
What is this little eyeglass thing?
Well, I'm saying it's like this is, again, a private organization that's creating this money. It's not
for
like
the
a
government.
Governmental
I
system
see
where
what you
it's
mean
like,
now. I was
hey, these are our taxes. You know, it's like our taxes are
This
making
is
that
just
money.
one
It's
guy's
not.
money.
This is the homie's money-making machine,
Yeah.
and you can partake if
By
you
the way,
like or not. It's up
another
to you.
cool-
but you won't be
cool-
able to do anything if you don't.
Another cool factoid about the Fed. They say that's what got Glenn Beck fired from his Fox News position, is that he had an episode about the Fed. I remember him gaining somewhat of like notoriety when we were in Iraq together because I saw some sort of like documentary of his or DVD of his that one of the commanders had, and it was about like the Cabal of Islam, and it was like, whoa, but yeah, it was like some spooky, you know,
Spooky brown people in the
and I was
desert.
like, yeah, and I was like, all right, Glenn Beck, like you're coming with some information, but I don't really fuck with this lean or whatever.
Yeah.
But then when he lost his Fox News gig and founded the Blaze, which is now what's his name, Rubin's on there,
Dave Rubin. yeah.
Rubin's on the Blaze. Tommy Lauren was for a while. Blaze is pretty notable.
Notable.
Notable, thank you.
Notoriety and notable at the same time.
Yeah, it's a good one.
Yeah.
It's a good one. But yeah, he did an episode about the Fed on national like syndicated television, and
Yeah.
see it, Glenn Beck.
Don't fuck
See
with the
ya.
boss, dog.
Oh,
you
you
know?
said that the Fed isn't really part of the government? Bye.
Yeah. we got something for you.
Yeah, we don't really say that. Here go the plates.
The plates are not what I thought they were.
Yeah, you know, they always seem like these fancy silver big
Like
ass.
little
from, like,
things
Rush
that you
Hour
could
when you
get
got,
or
like, the
something.
plate.
Yeah,
Yeah,
like
it's not
you
really-
ain't stealing that, bro.
It's just like it's part of a machine.
yeah, you ain't walking away with one of those.
It also has absolutely no value without the machine. Like you can't do anything with it.
This reminds me of Money Heist, though. You see Money Heist?
Yeah.
The show? Yeah, and they take
I
over.
mean, I never saw it, but you.
Yeah, and they take over the tent. Why does this one have to inject the dye, but the other
other
one,
one
the
was
guy
just
is slathering it off?
This place is a different place. Maybe it's more high.
Yeah, they have more fancy equipment.
This is the Rothschilds place. The last place was the Rockefeller place. This is the Rothschilds place.
They're all within the Bilderberg network.
Didn't look like that part was doing anything. It was like flapping it out.
It was like it was letting them go, but then once the stack gets big enough, it just stops and it holds onto it and lets it just keep cycling back until it's ready to stack again.
get some more. That's funny.
I'm assuming.
Yeah, that's a good assumption.
You have them on these nice serving
I
trays.
know. I was like, that shit looks fancy as hell.
I told you, though, the Rothschilds don't spare any expense.
They
Look
spare
at-
no
look at this man is brushing
Every
the little
hour on
dials
the hour.
every fucking run.
Every
He's like,
hour.
let me wipe these motherfuckers.
Yep, let me wipe
They
them.
reset the serial numbers. Non-traceable, buddy.
It's literally
Yeah.
the Enigma machine from World War II. And they're just they are, dude. Look at that motherfucking Enigma machine. Oh, yep, don't
Dude. And it's just printing about 100 bills a second.
Just got a sheet of money. It's funny because like when you look at it like this is what it was like to have like rolling paper back in the day before it was like pre-cut. you would just have this big sheet of paper that you had folded up, and you would just unfold it and rip off a piece and roll up your shit. And so, like, can you imagine if your money came like that too? Like, if you got like a check of like $1,000 and like big ass sheets of like 20s, you had to like
Like a little fairway card.
That's really funny.
What are you doing?
Gotta
buy a house later.
Gotta pay rent.
My money in order.
You outside? We close in 20 minutes. I know shit. Hold
John,
on.
you're 2 sheets behind, buddy. I mean, I can't keep floating you anymore. That's a
exactly
lot
I
of.
can't float you any more sheets.
Come on, bro.
You got 3 checklists. I'm running out of
You're just like, this is the last I'm gonna let you borrow. Rolling.
hit him with it.
You see some guy walking down the street like, damn, look at all this rolls, dog.
He's holding scrolls.
Instead of like a stack, you'd have like a bunch of rolls.
Oh, stop. That's so funny. Oh,
The
God,
original
that's
money
funny.
roll. It's like,
Now I started thinking about rapping about knots, but really talking about Quipus.
Oh
Yeah.
my god.
this is bullshit. When I get popping, I'm
want
gonna
this?
cellophane my money like this. You don't see
Heat
no guy
shrink
do
wrap.
that. Yeah, I don't see no guy running around in actual heat shrink bricks of money.
Yeah, because the only thing that helps is just to keep it from.
Let motherfuckers know this ain't even my flexing money. This is my old money. Like, I don't even use this money. This is money
my
I just kept
collectible
sitting
money.
around.
You
My
can spill
collectible
Cristal on this money.
Like, you
It would
can
do
tell
nothing.
This is
It's
not my
waterproof.
rent. This is not
I
my
swim
rent.
in the pool of this money. Like,
This is not my rent. Okay, this is my money.
This is my
You can
money
tell
I
'cause
could
it's
throw
heat
in there.
sealed.
Yeah, I could throw this money in my pool, dog, and just fish it
That's
out.
fine.
We gonna have it for a while. Is what I want you. It's not going anywhere.
That's funny.
this is my buried in the ground money. I can't get no dirt.
Look
on
at that
my
job.
money.
Hey, he was wearing gloves.
He used to clean it. He probably had like chemicals. on it.
Azure and lavender. Interesting, man. I wonder who got to decide the colors and all that stuff.
So
too.
like printing. Yeah, it's some planner designer. dudes.
Yeah, some guy got to draw it up and be like, "What'd you do? I actually designed the euro."
That's when those like communistic and socialistic systems get all wonky. Is when like people just start putting their
Those look like American
homies.
$100 bills.
They are.
That's fast.
That's our government right there. That's the Fed.
Those are the new ones. Too.
Just making
There you go, girl.
The
Hey.
worst part about this is that literally somebody's whole job is just come in there 5 days a week and do this.
Yeah.
They just print it.
Yeah, they're just making it. That's
Just
what I
like,
said.
fucking-
Imagine watching that, just, and then getting your paycheck, and it's 3 of those.
I just
Hey, there go
imagine,
the
like,
plates.
Yeah. Ooh, look at
Ours
them.
are pretty fancy actually.
Ours are. They're
A
like
lot fancier than
city
the other
edition.
ones. And then our shit comes out all looking weak. It's like the fancier your plates, the weaker your money is.
Did they put that in there and post, or is that part of the money?
What?
It looked like they were trying to like block those strips, that black strip in the middle there.
No, I think it's a shadow.
It's a shadow from the things hanging above.
Oh,
it.
okay, yeah, that makes sense.
Huh.
Damn, son. This is just what they're making today. I mean, this ain't got nothing to do with what they made 20 years ago or 50 years ago.
They just been printing more and more.
How much do they lose in circulation?
But you know what happens though? Like when old money, they like save old, like deteriorated money and they burn it off.
Yeah.
And they recycle it and they put it not recycle it, but they put in new fresh money to
Facts.
replace it. So it's not
Because
like
it gets
it doesn't just
damaged.
keep. Yeah, it doesn't just keep going. So that was I remember watching like a Queen Latifah heist movie where she was like an employee at a place where they destroyed the money.
Yeah.
And they just kept an
she was-
entire pallet of it and then the
Uh,
final.
It
the
sounds
spoiler
amazing.
alert.
It sounds
it's
amazing.
Such a good,
Don't-
it's such a good movie. No,
Don't give me the
spoiler
full-
alert.
okay.
It's like 20 years old, dude.
Okay.
Like spoiler alert.
But I really want to see
It's
it.
your fault.
So fucking
It's your
watch
fault.
it.
Should've
Damn
watched
it.
So fucking watch it. You'll know what you'll know how it
All
works.
right, well, give me the plot.
Well, now I can't because you make me look like an ass.
Oh,
Well, the guy at the end. Well, I already told you that they stole the guy, the bank owner at the end. Like when he's like testifying to Congress or whatever, he's like, they keep asking him like, "Well, was the money stolen?" And he's like, he has to kind of save face because otherwise, it's like, how are you gonna trust these people to handle your money? You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
the government's not gonna keep letting you do it. And so he basically says like, our records show that all the money was destroyed. And they were like,
they get away with it. Yeah,
Yeah.
they
I
were like,
love it.
but and
Yeah.
so they get away with it because the bank wanted to save face or
Save
whatever.
face.
The Fed or whoever it was.
That was a theme in Well, a couple of times. Oh, okay, never mind. I was thinking about The Big Short, but I was really meaning Michael. What was that guy we watched about the housing development crash?
The guy we watched.
Yeah, the dude who was the con artist, and he was like going through, and he was like working the housing market.
Matt Cox.
Matt Cox, right? So or Michael, whatever. Yeah, Matt Cox. But anyways, he was talking about that. He was like how he would get away a lot of times because the banks didn't also want to like report that they had this or that. Like he was like, nobody wants anybody in their books. Okay,
right.
So he's like, even the bank doesn't want people like snooping around their books and like investigating them and stuff. So
right.
they would like. He would get away with a lot of stuff, and it was weird. But
that's how drug dealers rob other drug dealers. Can't call the cops.
Facts, can't do it.
It's true.
Exactly. Same. You know what I mean? They steal from the crooks. They're stealing. They can't. There's
Yeah.
nobody to call.
Somebody
them.
stole my fucking stolen weed.
Yeah.
That's why thieves have their own little code of honor. You know,
Facts.
like I've heard a lot. You know, you got 10 crack commandments. I've heard shit like, hey, you just charge it to the game. You know,
Yeah.
like if you got somebody that's just gonna take your money and run and not pay you back, and they done it more like one time, it's like, well, you know, oh well, it costs doing business. Like I've seen that quite a bit.
You charge
it's
for
like,
the
well,
game. You know
yeah,
the game. You
exactly.
know knowledge.
And
knowledge
then people
costs money.
and then people got tired of their profit margins being eaten into, and so they just became so bloodthirsty to make a reputation that nobody would ever do that to them again.
That's
Like what was his name? Fuck, I fucked that up.
Yeah.
I was gonna go super hardcore reference, but then I fucked it up.
then you missed
That's
it. I
okay.
did
I
the
missed
same
the
thing
reference,
just right here.
If I
earlier.
knew it, I would have tried to swoop in, but I didn't know the reference.
It's a good one. It's on the tip of my head, but I can't think of it now. I can't say it because it'd be like,
All right, moving on. But anyways, that's how the system makes money. You know, they just print the shit literally and all day, every day.
All day,
And
every
it's
day.
just fascinating. You know, like I said, it's an interesting process
They
that
still
it's
use
developed
humans
into.
a little bit too, which I
Yeah.
thought was
to kind of like move it from machine
Yeah.
to machine.
yeah. They were
Yeah.
just like, oh, let me slather a little hot sauce on it.
See, that's why robots are so much cooler than us, is because they don't have perceived value. They only have like logical, arbitrary value. Look at this man.
I know, because you hit me with robots, and we're talking
They
about
don't have
money.
it, but they
And
don't. Robots
because
have no
robot
use for
money-
money.
They're digital slaves, dog.
Yeah.
Robots are literally all the labor that we're all fucking arguing about. Well, I want 17 beans an hour. A robot's like, charge me up.
I do it.
If you make it so it's not sentient, it's literally
do
just
whatever the fuck you say
yeah, it's
for free.
amoral
it's gonna be-
master-slave relationship.
And it's going to be very interesting to see how that starts to skew the value propositions, you know, when labor is no longer valuable.
I would love to talk to Sophia about this. Let's get Sophia on the podcast.
It's gonna make a lot
Like,
of
yeah, Sophia, what happens when labor is no longer valuable because you guys have replaced it all completely?
I would just talk to
friends.
her in the sense of like, you are a free thinking thing, right? And she's like, no. I'd be like, okay, then if I am then your master and you are my slave because you are not free thinking and I can program you, then like, as long as you never get a free mind, can't I just use you forever to do all my labor?
Well,
You
it
can.
is just a tool.
You can.
But it's a tool that you can just like crank up.
Until it decides it doesn't want to be
What's
cranked
the-
up
I mean,
anymore.
What's the difference between like cranking your car and cranking up your robot?
In the sense that all production, all labor, all farming, all medicinal, surgery, we can go up and down the chain of like all the labor that humans are paid to do could just be mindless robots.
Yeah.
And at that point, there's a couple human jobs left.
No, that's what I
in
said. It's gonna be very
robotics.
It's gonna be very interesting when labor is no longer
People gonna have
valuable.
to.
in
People gonna
society.
have. Y'all gonna have to get creative.
It's the only way. It's
You-
the
you
only
gonna
way.
have to get
The only
creative.
thing that's gonna perpetuate, and we already seen that now in the internet. Like value is established by the truckloads on YouTube every single day. Social medias and all this stuff. It's the ability now to communicate, to create, to
Share. just-
entertain, inspire, all
Yeah.
the things that we can't get from a mechanical transaction of
robot.
labor.
Yeah.
Like, because that's coming. Like you said, again, as long as the robot never cares, then it never cares. Like I said, as long as the robot
Yeah.
doesn't want anything,
Yeah.
it's just like whatever.
Yeah, as like you said, as long as they
my
continue to
keyboard
be-
never complains.
Yeah,
This
as
is-
long as they continue to be tools and not sentient beings and things like that, then I think that in the long run, it'll be one of the best things that mankind's ever done for itself.
Well, that's hard to say though, because you said it just. It's okay. It's the hand sanitizer conversation from the beginning of this thing. It was like, do we really want everybody? You know what I mean? Everybody to be in this one field. You know, like when labor is no longer valuable, which is the biggest exchange for money happening right now. Like if you ask the normal person, how do you make money? They're going to say, get a job. right?
Yeah.
Have some type, and it could be any, but have some type of hierarchical job that a role in society that pays you. But when half of those roles get wiped out and it's only intellectual, I mean, we're really leaving out, because like we just talked about, John's just not a real good stoneworker.
It's not intellectual. It's like that. Like, that's what I'm saying though. Is like, you don't have to be the creative, like making the art. I mean, like, you can get a job as like a designer. Like, you don't have to be the guy coming up with the designs. Like, you just work at like a design place, and they're just like, here, these are the designs.
But that's just intellectual.
Yeah, but he's just saying,
No,
like,
you just have to know how to like do a little like program. Like, if you can like understand how to work a program, understand how to like run a.
Robots are sophisticated, bro. So I mean, like, right, and they're only. So I mean,
I know.
We're talking in a world where they've started to replace a lot of labor. We're not just talking like McDonald's. I mean, these guys will be drawing things. They'll be creating things. I mean, like you said, they're already building our cars and everything else for us. With a couple handful of mofos to
program.
keep.
Yeah.
So
Like,
I mean,
generating
you're
like
saying
a
like
drawing
being able to
essentially.
use a program, they'll have a robot for that. A robot that can execute.
Well, it'll
the
be just a program
accounting.
that does it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
exactly.
Like that accounting for a whole company, the bill collection, all that stuff will become automated, and then it's like, what is the humans gonna do?
the
Like,
state
what are we gonna do?
assigned role. That's where you start getting into that whole idea of that gets scary, because now when you have the workforce of like 54% or 60% of your workforce, which is retail, trucking,
just
all that
sitting on
stuff
their
lumped
ass.
together, which is like the stuff that robots can do in a couple years probably and be widely implemented. When you lose that huge chunk of the workable people, all those people are now like, well, what am I supposed to do, government?
Well, okay,
Do
you're
I go
talking
on
about
unemployment?
you're talking
Do I
about
get some sort of
the
dole?
immediate transitional period, and I said in the long run, like, it'll
Yeah.
free humanity in general from the mundane tasks that it's been generally trying to get away from ever since we came up with the first industrial revolution and we're trying to do agriculture. Like, as soon as we started getting away from where everybody had to do hunting and gathering all the time, then we've just been trying to get further away from that as much as possible. And so it's like, I don't see, like, yeah, you're right. Like, in the short term, a lot of people are going to lose a lot of jobs. They're going to have to do a lot of shit. But I mean, it's like in the
Responsibility's
long
gonna
term,
shift
but
to
I
the
think it's
state.
going to be, I think it's going to be better. Like, as society catches up with how far technology has progressed, I think that with the outcome of that will be better.
It's going to inflate our government. That's what I think it's going to do. And
Inflate the government?
yeah, I
oh,
think
like a
it's
bunch
gonna
of
make
people
our
just
state,
go into government?
Well, yeah, it's just going to become.
Never thought about
the
that.
state's going to be inflated. It's going to be.
It's
Our-
well,
go ahead.
'cause- no, it's funny that you say it like that, because I was literally gonna say the same thing. It's
I didn't think about that.
increase in socialism and increase in like we have to move closer to.
Oh
that
yeah,
side
everybody
of
will want to
things.
do welfare and shit like that
Yeah.
in the meantime. And I guess you're right. If it ends up just continuing what everybody does, well, I've always said that you need to have education back with anything. Like, you just need to teach people how to operate in the new economy.
You teach
When
them
the new
about your
economy,
God.
when
That's what you need
when
to
the
do.
new economy, well, God ain't gonna get you that money.
Yeah, well, you got.
when
gotta-
the new
they have to follow
economy
your
comes
morals.
around, you need to have people who know how to do things in that new economy. The only problem is that we just don't right now. We're not sure what all of that's gonna be, because, like you said, it's hard to like imagine all of these people being YouTubers.
Right, you know what I mean? Like, we can only watch so much stuff, and it just, everything has a thing, and there's a lot of people who are going to get displaced, and I'm not even just talking welfare. I mean, I'm just saying, like, literally, human beings need something to do. Like, it's part of our life, And so if we're no longer spending 80% of our time exchanging it for value beans, then what are we going to do with all that time? And I think that unless the government, because here's the
But
problem.
you still will be doing
But
that.
here's the
You
thing,
just
we're-
will be doing different things.
We're talking about banks. Like, I'm talking about this in a capitalistic society, right?
Yeah.
Like, we're already talking about this happening to us with the banks. Like, the banks were like, hey, new tool, money. It's going to change everything. It's going to help everything, but we're going to control it, right?
Yeah.
So 5 people control the banks now. Same thing can happen to robots, where robots start to replace all the economy, and those robots are only owned by a small percentage of the
I'm
population.
sure it'll be a handful
and they
of
might
companies.
not care about the fact that they displaced all those other people, and so somebody has to care. And that place would have to be like, we need to see things like universal basic income come about, and like, you just get paid to live, and like, you don't have to work, because there's not going to be any work to do,
because
like
they're
you just talked
valuing the work you're doing as a stay-at-home parent, or as a all these other roles that we fill in society that we don't get paid for. They're just saying like, oh, well, we're going to pay you for that. That's what it looks like to me.
I mean, they have to.
Yeah.
They have to. Everything, because like you said, what else will we do for our value? How else will I measure my value as a human being? If I can't get a job as the designer of the robots, and I can't get a job that the robots are doing, right? And there's only so much space for creative. Like, like, I'm just sorry.
Yeah.
Not everybody's
Not
going to make
everybody's
it
a
as a
creative.
YouTuber
Well, I mean, like, there's people
or a
like
basketball player.
Look at the people who work at Tom Sachs' studio. Like Tom Sachs is an artist. He makes like sculptures out of. It's hard to explain, but he's an artist. He makes sculptures and shit. He like gets paid to make art, and he has a whole workshop of people that he employs, and they just build his sculptures. Like, he comes up with the schematics and the plans, and they just put it together. And so, like, unless he starts making so much money that he can afford robots, then I mean,
Well,
like,
he
those
will.
are
Like you
jobs.
said, that it won't even be a money thing. It'll be common. That'll just be what you do.
I guess
Instead of
if
hiring a
the
person,
like
you
the
program it into your robot machine, and then the robot makes your sculptures.
I guess
That's what I'm saying. Like, we're talking about a huge displacement. And so, I mean, anytime any huge displacement of work right now, and who did it fall on? Right? Pandemic displaces everybody out of work. Where does that load fall on?
The working class.
It falls on the government, but that was my point. Then we want some type of
everybody
subsidy.
wants the government.
We
to do
want
something.
some money. Yeah, exactly. You're going to have to pay us then. Like, you need to take care of us.
Yeah, everybody was like, we'd stay inside if you paid us.
Exactly.
And it's like,
facts. But like, if you're
already
gonna be
telling
if
you.
you're gonna be the limiting force for my ability to make money myself, well, I still need to get my value beans some way, shape, or form. And so I'm just saying, like, for
that's
me,
what I'm saying.
in my
the
hypothesis,
companies won't be the companies will be the people. Like, you can't, like, if the government tells you to stay home, you can argue that they have to pay you for staying home.
Right.
But if the companies who are just making their own decisions and privately owned
just
force
put
you to
you
stay
out
home,
on your ass.
and then I mean, I guess you could still say, like, you could argue that you could run to the government.
Well, they're gonna run somewhere. That's my point.
But
They're either that or they're
gonna
gonna
run
go.
somewhere.
They're gonna go and they're gonna snatch those CEOs out of their fucking house. And
Their
they're gonna
mansions,
execute
shove a
them,
knife up
and
their
they're gonna
ass.
shut up all of them.
Yeah.
And then it becomes the humanity versus the robots fight.
It's not looking good, folks.
I mean, you can see how it can play into that.
How do we
honestly.
always end up in robot apocalypse? You
Because
know,
it's coming. Because it's coming.
I don't know. I think it'll be good.
I mean, I hope it'll be good. I what you're banking on is the thing that I always bank on, which is humans' ability to adapt.
They'll figure it out.
That we'll
yeah.
figure it out
We'll
along
figure
the
it out.
way,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
we'll morph and we'll grow
That's why I'm not worried
into
about
some
climate
way
change.
that like handles that.
Yeah, we'll figure
and
it
you're
out.
right, people will die and
Yeah.
bad shit will happen on mass droves on our way to figuring it out. Just like anything. Sometimes you do build a building and then the building crashes to find out that wasn't a good building.
You just figure that out.
yeah,
Yeah.
you figured it out. So
And then sometimes other people crash your building, and you got to figure
figure
that
it
out.
too, or
Look,
whatever. you know.
I'm just saying the Incans would have figured it out. That's
Yeah,
all
well,
I'm
the
saying.
Incans seem to have their own problems that they couldn't quite figure out
didn't-
because
but
they
the
sure aren't
conquistadors-
around anymore.
The
Yeah.
conquistadors figured it out for them.
That's
Yeah.
a big problem. Yeah.
They was like, here, we'll help you.
They
Get
quite-
rid of these keepers.
They
Yeah.
didn't quite figure out
They did
what's
not-
up with those conquistador problems.
They didn't have horses or gunpowder, and,
that's
the
a
problems
huge-
worked
That's a
themselves out.
huge problem. And yeah, I mean, look where we are today. Doing way better than the Incans. So it must have worked.
Oh, jeez. So yeah, I mean, you're right, but I mean, I definitely see that. That's gonna be a big. That's gonna be a big deal. It's gonna be a big deal in the sense of robots taking over labor. But I think that this brings us to a good part of the conversation, which is how do you prepare yourself for the ultimate
When the
robot
robots
take
come to
over?
make it-
Because
That's
if
the
you're
thing, the
somebody
robots
out
aren't
there,
coming to kill you. They're coming to take
your
your
jobs.
jobs.
So
folks.
if you
it was
think-
the robots, not the illegal aliens.
It was
the
the robots all
the
along.
cheapest labor, but
Yeah, fuck your illegal alien, bro. I got robots.
I got free labor, literal wannabe slaves. They
I just
want
pay
to
them
be-
once.
Yeah,
I pay once.
I
and
pay him in
get-
electricity, and then that shit goes.
It's
So
just
anyway,
a robot taking somebody's job, and the guy
Yeah.
like, it wasn't the illegal immigrants, it was the robots. It was.
It's
What's
the
the whole
robots,
time?
the robots the whole
No.
time.
here's your pink slip.
Damn.
Pow!
Yeah. Damn.
Damn, but you know
Shit
you got to
hits.
prepare yourself, gang. Gang. I always get my grind gang and my podcast audience.
Don't mind
mixed
him. He's
up.
got his own thing.
Sorry,
going on.
internet.
Don't worry about it.
Anyways, you got to prepare yourself, internet. You got to be ready. And so I would love to talk about some ways that we could build wealth, how we make money as individuals, not only in this future like robot possible world, but just even right now. You know,
Just right now.
I think that where I would start with that is that's not that I'm like the most wealthy motherfucker, so I'm not sitting here saying this like a master class on building wealth. I mean,
we're not financial advisors.
What I mean? This is a podcast where we're going to explore the internet and what the internet has to say about building wealth. But I've taken a lot of these principles and instilled them in my own personal life. And one of the first things I realized was you have to think about earning money outside of just labor. You know, it's not just your ability to produce something for somebody else. I mean, it is to produce something for somebody else, but you don't have to produce what they tell you to produce. And often when you do that, it just doesn't compensate well enough for you to actually build some type of radical wealth for yourself. Like I said, we were just talking about it, watching this man print those hundreds. Like, that's the quintessential difference, you know? It's like watching, you know, the other money just fly right in front of your face constantly while you sit there and get your little chump change from it.
I think about that for the Amazon workers. You know, like everybody's talking about how much the Amazon workers are making for the company and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And it's like you drop off a package, and like every time they drop it off, I just imagine like a little green thing popping out, like a video going, and so it's like bloop,
yeah.
And so every time, and then it just disappears and it goes up in Amazon's little HUD display.
I thought about this when I was working at a grocery store in like mid-level management. I started thinking about like, well, so if you work an hour for this store, how much profit are you making for this store? Like, I understand that the store has to pay rent, and you got to pay all this, you got to buy all this shit and put it on the shelf, and you know, all these things go into it, right? And even at the end of the day, everybody in that store, if you average it out, cashiers, produce workers, everybody's making that store, that business right there, that building, about $100 an hour.
Yeah, crazy.
It's crazy.
Just that one. Yeah.
Just each person,
Yeah.
every single beating heart that signs up for that day
making
is
that.
making that country. No matter what even if their job is checking to make sure people's whatever the job is, if the company thinks it exists, then they're doing something within it, right?
Yeah.
And at the same time, making all this money for because think about it. If your cashier is boop, 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 and you through the line, I mean, each one of those transactions making that money.
100%.
If somebody comes in and you find an item for them and they get back out quicker,
every single one.
the lower the amount of time they're in is more of a profit margin. So all these little things go into it, and all these little markets are engineered.
I love the way you just said that too, because you might ring up I don't know, but like 1,000 items in an hour.
They go by minute, so it's like 100 items a minute, or
100 items a minute, even crazier, right? But you only get paid $15 for that hour. Like you said, the company itself, the owner of the good, the owner of the good, the selling of the direct good or whatever, the owner of that thing gets paid.
It goes up and down, yeah.
Thousands of times what you do for this hour. It's just, and it's the worst exchange of money. Because here's another thing too. I talk to a lot of people who are making a decent living, you know, $20, whatever. Or you ask them, well, I want to be a lawyer, or I want to be a doctor, or something that I think is a high paying job or whatever. You know, I'm like, look, still the value doesn't equate, because you have to spend your time for it. And your time is your real resource. You're literally trading life. Like, time is the measurement of life. Money is the measurement of value. Well, time is the measurement of existence. So you're trading existence for value, you know? And that doesn't make any sense.
For
just being the
guy
standing
percentage.
here.
A small
percentage.
that, on top of that, the smallest percentage, you know? And so,
But that's not really what they're getting, though. It is, but there's something else that they're valuing there that's hard to. It doesn't show up in the transaction report, but it's the safety. Because like, even when you think about, like, you don't have to be like a rich and famous person. Like, the person who makes the most money at a small organization, like a local grocery or something like that, is the guy who owns the grocery store. And the guy who owns the grocery store is also the guy who runs the risk of losing everything should that grocery store no longer make money. So it's like, when the person, like, they won't have a job anymore because the grocery store's gone, and then they can get a job at another grocery store, which is a lot harder than starting another grocery store. And so I think that's like, those things, you don't see the safety that people are kind of paying for, and you don't see the responsibility that people get paid for when you just look at it based on the money that they generate and then pay to the people.
Even the responsibility of the owner, though, lies within the fact that, like, okay, if my entire business goes under, if I was the guy from Kmart and everything goes to shit, bankrupt, liquidate, whatever, like, let's say I have all this product and I get liquidated or whatever, or like, you know, you have something physical. Like if you're the guy who owns all these McDonald's properties and McDonald's goes under and you can't have McDonald's anymore, you have the land, you can just sell it. So if you're Mickey McDonald and your whole business goes to shit, well, okay, sell my assets.
Well, your assets, you're assuming that the assets would even cover your debt, which they might not.
Yeah,
so
I mean, you might be selling all of that for a loss.
Still be
That's
under.
a good point.
And
because you normally don't liquidate unless you're bankrupt.
I don't know. I wasn't really trying to turn it into the worker versus the owner conversation, because I'm trying to encourage people to move out of the worker side. Like you said, It's not about who's more, like you said, like it's like the risk. Actually.
The risk. The responsibility, the risk.
It's the risk. That's number two thing too, is like, and there's a thing I pulled up here too with the self-made millionaires told me about their wealth building. So this guy or person, Tom Corley, he did 177 interviews on millionaires and stuff and kind of got their take on what it takes to be wealthy. There's tons of these out here on the internet. I searched through a couple of them before I kind of settled on this one, but I liked some of the principles he was talking about. One of the ones, I mean, there's obviously that one, it's saving and things like that, but he talks about made myself look like a fool. It's not in this one. But one of the things is being able to take calculated risks. You know, that's another thing. Is like you said, people are looking for safety. I think in a way that was just breaking it down, if you're trading your existence for value, what's the most abundant resource and safest resource you have is your existence. Like you literally, all you have to do to get paid hourly, all you have to do is be there for time.
Right.
Like arguably to keep your job, you have to output work, but we've all had a job that can vary greatly. Like some people are outputting tremendous amounts in that hour, and some people are outputting nothing, but they both get paid the same.
Pareto principle.
Right. You know what I mean? Facts. So like you're both getting paid the same. In context of the bigger point I was making, it completely flew out the window. So
No, you're saying that the
take risks.
Yeah. Like
and all you have to do is exist in order to get paid. You just got to be there, and so that is safe. You don't have to worry about what if this doesn't work out.
Like it's the safest thing you can do.
Right. It's like
work for a
the only way that it doesn't work out is if you die or don't exist here. You know, and so you don't have to worry about, well, what if somebody does, you know, they want it. And so it's safe. But if you can take on that risk, calculated risk, you don't want to be just somebody who like whales your money or whatever off into the wind. But you have to start taking on risks in a sense of like, how can I create something from myself that I don't necessarily know will pan out, but could have more value, you know?
Yep.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I also think about it like this. I never thought about it before, but the idea of like get a job is like, no, you're selected. Like you have to apply and they select you. So it's like the job you're getting is only as good as the applications or power you put into it. So if you're going to work for yourself, you know, you got to apply yourself.
Yeah. Facts. Right. Yeah. You have to be your own boss. Like there's nobody to select you, I guess.
Right. Exactly.
Or keep you from it too.
Keep you from there's nobody to tell you what to do.
How to do
There's
it.
nobody. I mean, you know, like when you work at a job, it's a lot like the difference between living in an apartment complex and owning a house. When something in your apartment complex breaks, it means nothing to you other than a small inconvenience, because now you have to just like call the maintenance guys and then have them in your house for a little bit until they fix it. When you own the house, that's your shit. And you have to pay. You can still pay somebody to come and find it and fix it, but normally that's all like included and stuff like that. People like the included package, so you don't have to think about it. Somebody else makes the decision. Somebody else fixes the thing. Somebody else is responsible for all of this shit. Is responsible for making sure that everybody gets paid on time. And like, I mean, so many small business owners will tell you like, there's many times when they'll take money out of their own checks or take money from the the stuff that they want to invest in their own company to make payroll for everybody.
Yeah.
And so it's like, that's your responsibility. That's the risk. Like all of a sudden you have people that their family's dinners are dependent on you making sure that your shit works. And I think that's the thing. That's why they get paid so much. I mean, like that's, like you said, it's the risk. It's the underlying factor that you're the guy that's on the line. When you have a job, you're not on the line.
Yeah. I think when we talked about it, if the business goes under, both people are out. But like you made the distinction, it's a lot harder to start a Kmart than it is to just go get a job at Walmart, you know? And so when you lose Kmart, you said you do lose all those assets. You lose all the money invested, all that, where this person loses their ability to make hourly jobs. All I'm saying is I don't care. You pick anything you want to. I just think that if you're trying to build wealth for yourself and you're trying to do it in a system where you think you'll work X amount of years and save your way to wealth, I don't see that being the case. Now, saving is the number one step to building wealth, though. Because of that, you have to transfer from labor to ownership. And the only way to do that is to purchase something, right? You have to own something or create it. You can create it from scratch. But, even if you want to create something, that's going to require some type of capital. You're going to need money. You're going to need something of value to put in to create something else of value, right? And so people are like, well, that's, as like some type of burden. It's not. That's just your goal. You have to figure out how to save some type of money in order so that you can have something that you can invest or purchase or own something with. And so that's definitely step one. But you can't just save your way there, I don't think. And that's what most of them say is you got to start saving, and you have to start, because that's another thing too. A lot of people work and we don't actually conscious of where our money goes after that.
Oh yeah.
Like not only that, you get the money and you don't budget the money, or we don't pay attention to what we spend it on, and we just let it fly away, and then you turn around and you're like, where my money go? Isn't it interesting how you can figure out a way? And I did this myself personally. I know you guys too. All of us. You find a way to just live paycheck to paycheck. Doesn't matter what the size of your paycheck is. I've seen people all the way up to $100,000 a year living paycheck to paycheck.
You'll adapt.
Oh, yeah. You'll adapt. Yeah, exactly. You'll adapt up and down.
This brings me along a great little thread that I just want to jump into real quick. You adapt to that. Do you think there's any merit to this idea that I was just thinking earlier, where it's like if your system, like let's say the Andes Mountain people have always lived this certain way, the Mayan, Aztec, because one of those civilizations was around, is like the seed of all the others and was around for a long time. They all lived within this type of weird little kind of socialist system without money and stuff like that. Like, is that genetic? Did they evolve somehow to like care about and to think about labor in a certain way different than, because like we see this in traditions and cultures, right? So maybe with that comes some genetic markers, or with that comes some inherent traits that we don't fully understand. So I thought it just popped into my head.
I feel like it is kind of just because it's cultural maybe than it's genetic or whatever. But tribes seem to be able to pull off that type of organization better than civilizations can. Civilizations, I think, just outgrow it. Like you said, it's easy to maintain in a small family where we're all alike and we all kind of have similar values. Or marriage, and again, is another thing to join as one, and then to pitch all your resources in and trust the people you're working with. All that stuff's easy to do on a small scale, but then as soon as it gets big, like I don't trust anybody. I trust everybody in this house. I don't trust a single person in this neighborhood. I don't know a single person in this fucking neighborhood. That's how quick it got. Like, just from my house to
your tribe went
just from here to this big, I was already like, I'm not really fucking with these cats. I think I'm gonna do my own thing over here, So I think it's tribal in a sense, It's hard. That's why I'm at odds with the government system that we have now. I feel like it's trying too much to regulate too many people under one centralized point, and we don't really fucking work like that.
Can't make everybody happy.
Yeah, you know what I mean? You can't.
Especially when you're like a nation of minorities.
Everybody else. Like it's mad that it's this way or that way.
Not to mention the fact, like, I mean, you talked about the cultural aspect. Like, if you look at like Japanese Americans, they're one of the best markers. Like, they're in the socioeconomic status game. They're doing the best on average than out of any other demographic. Like, more Japanese people are popping out here in these streets than there are like proportionally white people popping from their whole population. And it's like, the culture has to do with that somehow. Like, you know what I mean? Like, you could say it's more tyrannical because a lot of Asians talk about how they're forced to do like certain things. Like, it's like expected that you become a lawyer or a doctor, so much so that we make jokes about it now. It's like a cliche. Right. But that's obviously doing something. Like, like, say what you will about the individual person in there, but Japanese people on a whole are doing a lot better than a lot of other people. And so, like,
economically. And
so, like, it's interesting. I never thought, like, maybe that's beyond cultural. Like, maybe that's like a genetic thing. I never thought about that. Like, are Japanese people more genetically predisposed to like submit to authority figures? or
Well,
something like
I
that,
think
because like
our-
that's something that their whole culture is built upon.
Are people of Central and South America and inherently hard workers? Do they value labor more?
Those
they
are all
more-
learned.
Like these
though.
are all, I
Those
think
are all
they
learned
are
traits.
I think they're
that
cultural, but
there's-
I think it can affect
I'm
your.
just saying it's an interesting idea.
Yeah, I think
never
the
thought
idea
about
that it can somehow affect an overall arc of your civilization's history. I think it's something within merit.
Because
But
I mean, values evolve. Like your
but
values evolve.
What got me there was the idea of living to paycheck to paycheck and evolving. So evolving within your group, that
Mm-hmm.
idea that you could just like, you can adapt to your paycheck, adapt to the amount of value beans you have coming in, and it's just you moving within a class system. Like if money didn't exist and you were just in a class,
you would just be that way.
you'd just
But
be
then
that
see
way.
how that's cultural though. So it's like you show up and then it was like you were talking about this earlier and you were like, well, then you just like I was like, well, that's kind of how it is here. We're just born into capitalism. Like we talk about this often. I don't choose this. And I was just born here and I adapted. And now I'm a capitalist, not because I want to be or have to be or anything. It's just like
It's really all you know.
This is the way we do it. It's just the way
Yeah.
we do it. I use money. It's given to you. It's not like but that was where you threw me off a little bit because you said, is it genetic? And the only way I could see that being genetic is not culturally in a sense of like all these people of a race or something. It would be more personality driven, I think. I think that certain people have certain personality traits that lend more towards one or the other, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like there are people who are more, I don't know what the word is, but caring and like, empathetic
Yeah.
and all that about like the whole and stuff. That would make you more leaning towards like maybe a more socialistic type of getting together, where there's other people who are more independent, more frugal and more whatever. I do my own thing. I don't need anybody else's help or want or whatever, and then you might be more lean towards a capitalistic view or some shit like that. So I think it's personality, which is genetic too. Well, they say it's both, right?
Well,
It's
I
like
think that
genetic
what we're
and-
talking about is like how somebody might end up in the yes, now it's hard to say that based on what we see here because most modern societies are like a mixing of a bunch of people and genetics and cultures. But I think when you talk about like in the evolutionary standpoint, they're like Japanese people were just pretty much especially Japanese people, like they were seclusionists, so they really didn't fuck with anybody outside of Japan for a very long
It's a
time.
homogenous group.
And then when that group finally branches out in the early 1900s or whatever, or 1800s, like it's just like that. Even today, you would feel the ramifications if it was some sort of a genetic thing, which would play into why I was just saying like you could see a link. You're right. I don't think that it is genetic because it's a far leap, but it's not something that I think anybody's really thought about either. So, like looking into it could be interesting.
Well, I mean, I feel what you're saying and looking into it, but even your example that you're using right now where you say it was Japan. Japan's a culture. It's not like a gene that you have. You don't have the Japanese gene, Like
Well,
you might have a gene
their
that
features are
their
different
features and
like
stuff,
that.
right? But that has nothing to do with how much money you save.
I mean, you're
or, like,
saying that, but do you know that?
Well, I'm looking at like my culture, right? So my parents and my parents' parents have a far different view on money than I have, right? But that's because they were shaped by far different economic times than I was. Like they lived through the Great Depression or World War II or something like that, and so that shapes how but we're from the same gene line. Like me and my parents are from the same gene line, but it's environment that shapes that quality, I think, more so than a gene, which would make you tall or short.
So
or
it's
fat
epigenetics.
I don't even know what that
If
word
you're
is.
Japanese,
Epigenetics is
yeah.
the study of how your environment affects your genes.
Facts. Okay, well, so facts. Yeah,
Yeah.
because like you said, I think that's the same thing we see in like Indian culture or something, like where they have this like stereotype that goes about where they're always perpetuating this type of stuff. But again, that's not a genetic. It could be genetic in a sense of like, how some chimpanzees eat more bananas than other chimpanzees or something, and so you might be more genetically dispositioned to want to collect
It's
bananas
hard to say
or something.
how much of us evolves. You know what I mean? Like it's hard to like all of these things that we consider like, well, evolution was taking process, and then we became conscious, and then we just started like logically rationalizing our way from there. And it's like, but you're actually still just like evolving, really. Like you're just like on a point in the spectrum, and you happen to be existing at this point in the spectrum, constantly evolving. So, but it's hard to say like whether or not your cultural choices in an amalgamous society are not somehow determined also by your environment, but by your genes, because with epigenetics, they talk about how like people will have genes that they don't trigger or whatever. Like your environment triggers certain genes to do one thing rather than another, or not trigger a gene at all. And so it's like, yes, there are some Asians that maybe weren't raised in a family where they cared about money and shit like that. Like maybe your dad was a drunk. And so like you don't have a good, but I was just saying on a whole, I think that I don't know enough about it to say that like it's not like genetics. Like there could play a role in something like that. And that could be a fascinating thing to know when you look at how people work in societies that are multicultural.
I can't get down with that even fundamental hypothesis. I mean, like I said, I can test it for sure, but right now at the table, I can't accept it, just because then you're saying your ability to make money isn't necessarily controlled by you. You know?
No, we're saying that you're predisposed to make choices that society right now values in the market that lead to more wealth. Not necessarily that you will, or that you have better ability.
Values,
just
and that's
that
has nothing to do with genes.
No, I know, but I mean, like society really values sports, but sports has a lot to do with genes, and you get paid really well for that.
Right.
So like if I'm saying that if society didn't value sports, then that wouldn't matter. Nobody would pay you a lot of money.
Maybe Asians are genetically smarter, and we value that.
What we value seems to be something
like
that they have in droves. Like in the same way that a lot of black people play basketball really well.
Okay.
We're not saying that determines
what you're saying is a genetic quality that
there's something that they
people might be more valuable.
Yeah, like guys who are really good at basketball, because we've created this game with a rim a certain height, and they're just predetermined to be super duper tall.
Super tall.
Like if we were, instead of being a culture that was into sports, maybe we were really into war and conquering people. Yeah. Maybe we wouldn't want really tall
guys just get picked off all the time.
All the time. They couldn't get in the tanks.
Smaller.
Their giant legs wouldn't fit.
I'm definitely with you guys.
Yeah, that's why I was like, I can't see. Like, we're having a hard time explaining this because I feel like he doesn't really get what I'm saying.
Because I was like, how did genetics predetermine your earning power? You know what I mean? But you're right. If we value different things, you know, so it's like that makes sense. That makes 100% sense. I would,
or maybe what I'm saying is that more Japanese people, like a higher percentage of the overall number of Japanese people in America, have the genes that society values than black people that we do with sports. In the sense that it's a small minority of black people that have the genes that allow them to be a professional athlete. But we value that very highly, which is why a disproportionate number of them are not in sports compared to their
I would say that's the part that I keep getting tricked on too, is you keep like, where we'll say like Japan or something like, and I'm like, what? A country doesn't share the same genes, you know what I mean?
Asians, like, you know what I mean? Japan,
you know, so
Asians, that's an Asian thing, you know, like even Southeast Asians have that joke,
right?
But yeah, I'm just singling out Japan. I could say Nigerian dudes are good at basketball, which may or may not be the case because I don't know how many Nigerians play basketball, but you know what I'm saying. I mean, I know a lot of Japanese people are good at that. You can say
like different ethnic groups, like different small subsets of ethnic groups.
Sure,
like,
but I just like as long as we acknowledge the fact that like not all black people are good at sports.
No,
right?
And not all Japanese people
it's not this race has a certain quality that we like. It's that these certain people have a certain quality that we like, you know, and I don't know. I mean, maybe we can. I mean, I guess they've done that in some studies where they say like, you know, this percentage of population tends to go to college more than this percentage of population. And so then you could say that their intelligence is more valuable than XYZ. But I think breaking that up and saying that intelligence or this genetic quality is rooted in this country, which is a society, like genetics and society aren't pre-linked like that.
Could be environmentally linked.
Well,
maybe, right? So being like, in a desert, like
exactly. I have a great example.
A quality where you don't drink as much water, and that's valuable.
Great example. The Sherpas that bring you up Mount Everest. You said earlier today, fewer people have something about Mount Everest, right?
Sure. Oh, yeah, like more people become millionaires in a day than people climb to the summit of Mount Everest in a year.
Yeah, so, and the idea...
In a day?
Yeah, so there's like more new millionaires being made every day. People who go from not being a millionaire to being a millionaire than people who make it to the summit of Mount Everest in a year.
The people that make it to the summit of Mount Everest, almost all of them are led there on this treacherous path by Sherpas and shit.
Yeah.
So the Sherpas are like an ethnic group that are there where the summits are, and their environmental capability of being able to traverse these insane paths and know the way. Like a lot of the people that die in that climb Mount Everest are the fucking Sherpas.
Yeah.
Because they're up there fucking doing all this dangerous
Doing it all
work.
the time, yeah.
Doing mad fucking dangerous
That's like your
work.
fucking office job is climbing Mount Everest.
Yeah, because
crazy.
you being based on your environment and maybe genetic markers or cultural markers, but your environment for sure, the environment of the mountains that you grew up on and your whole family and bloodline has grown up on, like they're the ones who are doing it. They're the only ones who do it. There are not any non-Sherpa fucking guides up Mount Everest, dude. There's not.
Because you have to know the mountain.
I think that what I'm saying is that given what I know about evolution and how your environment plays on you, so it's not just your like natural environment, like geography wise, it would also be your society. That's your environment, and you would evolve in a way that was congruent in that environment. And so all I'm saying is that I just don't think that you can rule it out as far as being in a Japanese, or if you want to call it just Asian or Eastern Asian. But I mean,
I think you want to say people who possess this gene are more valuable because of whatever, because there's so many different people who could possess X, Y, Z gene, whatever.
Because we
gene.
currently value the labor that gene produces.
Yeah, so if it's
than
intelligence, then that's why I'm trying to help you not be racist here and saying like Asians are more intelligent than everybody, because you know what I mean, like intelligence is what we value. We don't value Asian intelligence.
I didn't say that.
Or Japanese intelligence.
I didn't say that. I was just saying that literally, like we said, I mean, we're not saying that just because you're black means that you will be good at basketball, but more black people are good at basketball.
That's what I'm saying. That's a stereotype. That's not true. Like,
okay.
That's
not
true.
Just
not like a true thing.
Okay.
I mean, it might be a perceived thing. So we see more black people in the NBA or whatever, and so we equate that across the country or the world and say black people are more XYZ. But that is a small sample size. We're talking about a very small organization in one country. We haven't polled the entire nations to see. You don't know if there's some Swahili fucking
a lot
community.
of players in the NBA are from Europe. Tony Parker was from France.
But it's still a sport where it's like you're not really, like, if you're a kid, you can't dedicate your whole life to it knowing that someday you'll get a payoff. It's still like a entertainment or a sport. But if it was like...
Well, yeah, it's like becoming an actor.
Yeah, but if you took the whole world and everybody trained to be there, but we don't know who would be the best basketball players if everybody really took it serious.
I just don't think
it's all of
you can't
China
say it's
was
a genetic
like...
thing. I just don't think you can. I personally don't. I mean, you can if you want to, but I'm just saying, like, I don't think that... And I've always been this way.
Yeah.
I've always been this way because there's too many contradictories. Like you said, it's fine if you want to play a stereotype game and say most black people are better at or something. But, you know, I lived under that my whole life where it's like, hey, how come you're not good at basketball? You're black. And it's like, wow, you're really a dumbass. You know what I mean? Like, it's just, you're really dumb to think that just because I'm black would mean that. You know, and the same thing, like, to say that Japanese people own some type of gene that other people don't. I don't think that to be the case. You know what I'm saying? Like, their gene is only really about your physical makeup. You know, it doesn't have, and maybe what you're, fine, what you're predetermined to do psychologically too. But what I'm saying is your ability to play basketball or something like that, I don't think is bound to a race.
I didn't say that any of those skills were bound to a gene either way. All I'm saying is that you couldn't count out the role that genes play in those things.
Sure.
And I also didn't say that just because you're black means that you're good at basketball. I said that more black people, based on the way that we value the game of basketball being played, are better at basketball.
That's what I'm saying. How can you say that?
Because more of them are chosen to be the best basketball players. The NBA is the pinnacle of basketball in society, world society.
You think none of this
and
is
all of the European,
subjective?
huh?
You think none of this is subjective?
I guess you could say that, but I mean, you could call it monetarily. Like, it gets the most money, it provides the most value
because
to
it's
the
in
society.
the richest society that we have.
So there you go. I mean, whatever you want to say, but all I'm saying is that there are more black people playing basketball, and I'm saying that you can't count out genetics in that persuasion, in that observation.
Question: why doesn't Africa have the best basketball league?
I don't know.
Weird.
That's
right?
weird.
It's weird, right?
It's weird, right?
It's based on black people having the sport gene. It's fascinating. But I'm just and that
Hey,
was
I'm just the old guy at the
I'm
booth
not
saying the quick twitch and the slow twitch, buddy.
I'm not saying
Funny.
that genetics are not a precursor, because they could be. They could be a precursor to anything.
Yep.
I'm arguing the fact that all of Japan does not share a genetic makeup.
That makes
say
them
that they
more
did.
intelligent.
on particular that
They might
point,
have.
right?
They might have
or whatever value we think that they have. But
Yeah.
I just, that was the part that when we kept saying like, well, Japan or this group, and I'm like, yo, I mean, like you said, Africans and Americans share genes, but we don't share values, and that, or environments or anything, and that shaped how we act a lot more than just the fact that they're both black. You know what I mean? Or that, like they.
Oh no, I was trying to say that I think that those things affect your genes and stuff like that. Like that's my whole point, is that we can't say that none of those things.
But they measure genes and they haven't seen that precursor.
What?
Like they haven't seen that. I mean, I don't know. Let's see if Asian people, because you can measure genes. They can measure who has what genes and what genes are floating around out there. And I've never heard, hey, this just in, Asian people are genetically smarter than the rest of the planet.
I really wasn't. It was just an example, like to say, like, I mean, Asian people are better at math or whatever. Like you said, it could be any stereotypical thing that you want to say. Like black people are better at basketball, Asian people are better at math. I'm not saying that they're like it's a science. I'm just saying what I see out in society is that a lot of people that are Asian are good at math, and a lot of people that are good at basketball are black. I'm not saying anything about black people or Asians other than maybe that genetics might have a thing to play about it. And you're right. Some people who are not black share genetics with other black people, but we also don't really know everything about genes and how they work. So I'm just saying, like, we should look at the whole picture.
Yeah.
Like, there's a whole picture here, and like just because other people were using, just being assholes about it to like keep them from doing things that were just regular shit, then like I just don't see how that's we're past that, or at least I am. I mean, I don't know if you're trying to say it, but
I'm gonna do some work on this because I can't really come up with the exact question
just
I want to
something
look at
about
right now.
genes.
But I just for me, I'm
not, interested in the conversation.
Me
I would
too.
love to talk about intelligence.
we should do like a gene episode.
Or just
genetics.
in
Yeah,
general. because
genetics.
I think
Genetics
that
is a
it's
good
like
one.
we need a better understanding of what genes actually do to a human and who possesses what genes.
And I would love to go deep.
Because I would love to find out that all of Texans, like if you grew up in Texas and Texas has molded your ability that you have different gene pools than like, XYZ people or something.
Yeah,
but I just not buying
if
into
I'm
that right now.
literally better at soccer because of where my grandma was born and her grandma's tribe was.
Like I can understand if that place plays more soccer.
Yeah, because I just like
then you like picked it up more and were around it, but
yeah,
how are you just?
Well, you're just genetically better at sports.
But then you could be
genetically better at sports.
You could genetically have really good
subjective.
balance,
That's the
though.
thing.
Like that's something that you could actually genetically possess.
Hand-eye coordination,
strength,
hand-eye
coordination, all these qualities. But the part that I keep getting hung up on is how is that shared by one culture though? Like how is that a bit like because you
not
said
even culture,
in a culture
genetic group.
you see fat people but skinny people, you see tall people but short people, you see sports people but not sports people, and so the genes I don't think can be clumped up culturally. I think genes and culture are two different things that mix to create individuals. So we both might have a black gene. We do. We both have 50% the same genes. And they've manifested completely different, not only in our personalities and how we are, but also in our upbringing. You've never been to Afghanistan or Iraq and all that stuff. I have. You lived at home by yourself with our parents. I never did that. So all these little things have shaped us to be completely different people. You know what I mean?
But
and the genetics
you can't talk
played a
about
part.
it on like that's what I'm saying though. It's like you can't, when you're talking about it, you have to look at. I'm not talking about it in just like people alive today. Like it's a through time kind of thing. So like one lifetime isn't really. You can't say like, oh well, his genetics are like he evolved in Afghanistan while he was in Iraq and stuff like that. It's like yes, but those things don't actually apply until later down the road, like when the evolution takes place and it becomes the thing that nature chooses to continue to make proliferate.
It'll be a fascinating conversation for another day. I feel for sure. Definitely putting that in the show notes. We're gonna come back to this for you guys. But in the meantime, I was talking about building the wealth or whatever, and this was fascinating. In this article, they talk about these different kinds of millionaires because he obviously interviewed 177 millionaires or whatnot, and he broke them down in like 4 kinds that he kind of saw. And I thought that was really interesting and who these people were. He had the big company climber, which the millionaires in my Rich Habits study who worked for publicly held companies accumulated significant amounts. This path took an average of 21 years to accumulate an average of $3.3 million. So these are like your CEO types, your CFO types, who also
Climbing
do build
like the
wealth.
corporate ladder,
when we were talking about earlier about how labor doesn't necessarily build wealth. I think that does. But I also would say that CEOs aren't really hired based on their labor output, more in their intelligence and
well, it also
skills.
depends on what your labor could be very, very valuable, and so like you could become wealthy from having like a job doing that.
So he talks about this. The next one is the virtuoso, who's these millionaires became experts in their field. This path took an average of 20 years of daily study for knowledge-based or skill-based virtuosos. After that 20-year period, those who followed the virtuoso path accumulated an average of $3.9 million. And so that's what Mac was just saying. This is the ultra professional, the expert, the pediatric brain surgeon, like the most sophisticated person in a certain niche.
I see that. Yeah, I was gonna say I see the other end too, where it's a kid that just plays this video game really well.
Really well. It's just
got a good personality.
Anybody who's
skill-based virtuosos.
a basketball player.
Yeah, Ricky Rubio can just pass the ball.
Anybody who's
really
perfected a certain skill, or a scientist.
Mm-hmm.
Anybody who's perfected a certain skill or information past their peers. I think that this is
A
kind
violinist.
of the path that I'm trying to be on. I mean, this a violinist, good one too. The entrepreneur virtuoso type thing is I really want to, master my ability to speak and influence so that I could help people in that way. And then obviously I'm starting businesses and stuff too. So
well, shit, we should just be all four of these all the time.
yeah, I'll never be the big company climber, so
sure?
that's just not gonna happen for me.
Not gonna be a CEO of a
Never
publicly held company.
I hate it. It drives me nuts. Dude,
when you become a CEO of a publicly held company, I'm gonna pull this clip.
Bro, it will never.
Well,
happen.
that's a difference. There's a difference between becoming the CEO of the
my
company
might
that
be
you
pivotal,
start,
yeah.
and then
I get
climbing from being the guy in the mailroom to being the CEO. Like
I
it's
get
a
it.
company climber
Yeah.
working in a corporate system. It's different if you're the guy who started the company.
That's
That puts you in the dreamer
Dreamer
entrepreneur
entrepreneur
section.
I'm trying to bleed into the other
But
ones. It's a Venn diagram.
It won't.
It's a Venn diagram. Stop being so binary.
I'll be all three of the other ones. I'll just never be that. Dude, literally, when I went to film school, this is the thing that pissed me off because the whole time they were like, well, if you want to get a job in the movie industry, if you'd like to get a job in the movie industry. And I'm like, wow, we're all really just in this to get another job.
We turned into the machine.
When you think, oh, I'm gonna go make movies and like I'm a movie like star or something. Newsflash, being an actor is a job. It's a job just like any other job. You're going to go there. People are going to tell you what to do. You have to do it their way. And if you don't do it their way, they'll fire you. And it's just this whole system where you answer to everybody else but yourself. Yep. And I just they can't. And the thing that fascinated me about a creative school is they can't fathom my mentality where I'm like, no. I'm just going to make my own movies. Like I'm going to be the guy who makes the shit. And they're like, yeah, you're going to work for a studio as like a director or something. I'm like, no. I'm the studio. I'll be the studio and the director. And they're just like,
what are you talking about?
Dumbfounded.
Yeah, they're like, you can't do that.
You can't do that. Yeah, well, you'll never be. Where are you going to get the money? And I'm like, y'all are tripping right now.
You're basically walking up to him and being like, I'm Drake. And they're like, well, you invested in Drake and helped him print millions and millions of. And you're like, no. I'm Drake.
Yes.
You managed his tour. No.
It's the exact mentality that keeps them teachers at the Los Angeles Film School as compared to being actual
dream big.
movie makers.
Shots
we dream big.
Fired.
The averagely intelligent dudes dream big.
That we do, sir.
It's true.
The dreamer entrepreneur category, this is the hardest and most stressful path. You must be able to overcome many obstacles and much rejection to succeed as an entrepreneur. It took an average of 12 years for this group of millionaires in my study to accumulate an average of 7.45. No wonder it's so popular.
It takes all the hardships and it condenses them into like a time chamber. It's like, oh, what? 21 years for $3 million? Nah, more like 12 for, let's say 7. But you have to deal with a lot of bullshit.
Yeah. Hey, the more pressure, the brighter the diamond, I guess, because you're also making the most guap. But like you said, I definitely think that this is the most stressful path. Highest risk, right? Mm-hmm. Highest risk. The virtuoso gets paid all the way through the accumulation of their knowledge and their skills and all this stuff. The same for the company climber, right? There's compensation all the way through. An entrepreneur, you could be an entrepreneur. It could take you 12 years to make your first dollar.
They're going to reject you. They're going to reject you and
everything,
you,
and you have to fight through all that to even break in. The last is the saver investor. The millionaires in this group saved 20% or more of their income and prudently invested those savings. This path took an average of 32 years to accumulate an average of 3.26. I found that this is the route with the fewest barriers to entry, no big investing risks, advanced degrees, or logging long hours at work, climbing the ladder required. And then it goes on to talk a little bit about saving and stuff.
So yeah, it's just like about investing in good assets and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Because that's the thing is like, you know, a lot of people have this idea of like saving in their 401k or in their pension or whatever, waiting, you know, like Social Security or whatever. And it's like, that's probably like, you might accumulate $1 million over time, but then once you get there, like you're also living in a life that you're making more than you were when you started. So it's not like gonna stretch as far as you thought it was when you started making the payments to your 401k. Right. And also it might just disappear, you know, if the fucking
market crashes.
And you're not investing in the right spots. You know, it's like,
if you're a skill-based virtuoso, you just jump ship, go somewhere else.
Yeah, you know, people are always
like if your hospital goes out of, you know, you just go to a different hospital.
They're always going to want
surgery.
If you're a rocket scientist in Nazi Germany,
dude, they're going to find a place.
If you're a fucking virtuoso,
you could just come over here and build
come
atomic
over
bombs
here
for America.
We got to bomb Japan.
Yeah, man.
They're going to want you. They don't care. Everybody else, you go into prison.
That group of people
virtuosos
was a very... They happen to be kind of in a like would you call them a wrong place at the wrong time kind of bunch, or how would you describe them? Because they're scientists, you know, they're like kind of doing what they're told, but they also happen to be like
evil
like partly responsible for some of the most fucked up shit that's ever happened to other people.
Hey, the atomic bomb is also an atomic reactor, which is also energy,
right?
So
true.
It's
unintended
like,
consequence,
you know what I
maybe.
mean? Like, hey, the internet's been used to fuck a lot of people, to rob a lot of people, steal a lot, kill a lot of people. You know what I mean?
Taught us everything we know.
But it's also great, you know. So it's just tough. I don't.
Thank you, internet.
I definitely think that.
I don't thank you enough.
They knew what they were doing, and there is complicit in that act as I am in my Apaches that I fixed going out and killing people in war. I did not kill people, but I definitely helped other people kill people.
You were a good facilitator.
I definitely was, you know, a conduit for that that to happen, you know.
So what you're saying basically is he rapes but he saves.
Doesn't everybody?
Oh man.
In some way, shape, or form.
Yep.
But I think there's some key takeaways that I wanted to pull out of this before we really like wrap it up on this. Dude, 20 years?
12
years?
Yeah, invest.
30 years? How many times you talk to people about getting wealthy or making... I know I was this guy. I was literally like, when I first set this off as a goal of mine, like, you know, I'm going to get my finances in order. I'm going to start making some money out here. I'm going to start not living paycheck to paycheck. And I said that as a goal. I said, you know what? I think I'll make $50 million by the time I'm 32. And I was like, I was legit, like a goal on a wall written down.
Wrote it down.
Looked at it every day. And just because that, I just didn't understand what it actually took to build wealth at the time. You know, I didn't know where money came from or how money was made, how long it takes, what you have to do with it, any of that stuff. And so I was still learning, and it was just like a lofty, what I thought was, you know, now not saying that you can't make that type of money. I could have. I just didn't have I just wasn't the person yet who makes that kind of money. And that was one thing I think is like having a long-term view. I'll probably be somebody who makes $50 million. I just don't think I was going to do it in 4 years. You know?
That's a lot.
Like
that's a lot of
change
to go under.
Yeah.
In such a small time.
Right. It is. I mean, these people, this is averages, obviously. So it's not to say you can't blow this out of the water. I'm not trying to limit anybody's ideas themselves out here. But, you know, on average, it's 20 years to get to about 4 mil. So, I mean, you know, you got to really take that long-term view, I think.
Yeah, because all of these are telling you to invest time.
At least. You know what I mean? At least. Even if it's going to be through the work angle or a saving angle. Other thing I did notice that, too, is like you were saying, and they talk about this, is you have to save in order to start that investment journey. But I think where a lot of Americans, especially because they've been kind of fed this idea of 401ks and retirements and stuff, is that they're saving for their retirement. And that you have to save so you can invest for your retirement, I think personally. But I think having that investment, all three, wealthy people have all three. Wealthy people are paying down their debts or minimizing their debts. They're saving money, and they're also investing their money. You know, and I think that having that figured out, all those things kind of figured out, is essential to making any kind of wealth out here in our society.
Facts.
Yeah.
Shout out to all the Drakes out there.
Yeah, and the Warren
Go get your
Buffetts.
bag.
The Warren Buffetts, yeah.
The Warren Buffetts
and the ditch diggers, dude. Shout out to the ditch
Ditch
diggers
diggers,
and the
for real.
plumbers and the fucking the dude who like handles the trash.
If you love that, you could still be rich.
Like
You can still do that every day and still be wealthy.
Hey, there's very wealthy people that get paid to, well, private companies get paid to pick up trash for the city, but you know, somebody's getting paid for that.
Yeah, but that's the thing too, because I say a lot of people are like, I love my job, you know, whatever, my job is important. I'm like, it's fine, you can have it. I'm just not saying don't do your job. That's fine if you like it.
Yeah, that's the one
but
thing.
But you can still be wealthy. Take your money that you get from your job, and instead of blowing it on the BMW 3 Series, go and fucking invest.
Make
in
yourself
something.
wealthy. Yeah, that's the one thing that I don't like about it. Like people forget that. You know, like even the cashier jobs and stuff like that, like those matter to people.
Mm-hmm.
Those matter to people. Like the money that you make at your cashier's job puts food on your kid's table. Your kid needs that. Your kid, that's value. Like you're providing value, and you are important, and it does matter. But you know, like at a certain point, it seems like we might get to a point where that isn't. So you have to educate yourself. You have to learn how wealthy people get wealthy. What do they do? What are ways like. You might even have to tailor what we just told you here in this article to the new economy that's burgeoning. Because maybe being like a corporate climber person won't be a thing. Maybe everybody that works at corporations will be CEOs, and everything else is just done by programs and computers. So you have to figure it out.
Controlled corporations.
Yeah, so it's like RoboCorps.
Yeah, RoboCorps.
So you know, and it seems weird. But the statement, I like the statement when you think about it. It's that. One of the best things you can do for poor people is not be one of them. And that's like not be with them, because that sounds fucked up. But really what that means is that you have to be in a position to help. You have to be in a position to help, even if you want to help as much, like all in the world. If you can't help, then it doesn't matter. It
doesn't matter.
Then it doesn't matter, because nobody cares how much you want to help. They only care about how much you do help. Yeah. And that's what wealth can do for you. That's what wealth can do for you.
It's true. Build.
Okay,
so Jesus,
we
that
are going
felt
to.
right.
How long were we gone there?
The magic of editing.
Welcome back, guys. We're gonna talk about money again.
Yeah, we got to come back to it for sure. I think
are.
that there's still more to talk about in another episode. You know, there's a lot of things that we didn't really get to. Things about future money, things about like stigmas and beliefs about money.
Bitcoin.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, we could do a whole episode on the blockchain, honestly.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
But anyways, one day we'll get into it. But dude, I mean, I gotta tell you this, and this is kind of a nod to the future conversation. I love money. You know, like I love not money. I love value. You know, I love providing value for people. That's why I make this show. That's why I do anything in my life, is to try and help somebody else.
Do you like being valued?
I do, but I don't necessarily need it as much as I see a lot of people. Like I value myself so highly that I don't need external value. This is why I also don't use my money as like a measurement of me as a person.
Yeah.
You know, because that's not what its job is for, but you don't have to do, you know what I mean? Like
you
it's
just
just
love
a
how
stick.
functional the tool of money is.
Sure.
That's what you love about
and
money.
I
You love how easy it makes so much really complicated shit in your life.
Well, no, that's why I actually made this distinction, because I actually don't care about like I would lug around heavy ass sacks of coins if that's just what we were doing.
Well, that's
you
also
know?
money.
Like I don't care, but I guess I'm less interested in the measurement of it, but I'm interested in the exchanging of value. You know, like I've done my own personal brand for a long time, and I've never asked for $1, you know, in there, because I have an inherent reward for it, you know, and that's just like I like that value, and I know that building that value, that's how money's made. Like I'm not ever worried about the money part of it. I love just providing value, knowing that the reward for providing value is money, is dollars. And then if that's the case, if I'm always making my money on value added, then you know, I'm happy life. I win, you guys win, everybody wins, and you know, and I get to be a part of the little.
It's a really good habit too, because you're gonna learn more skills to get more value from more habits.
Yep.
Like fill more positions and roles.
Yep.
Like that's.
I agree. Yeah.
Evolution.
Yeah. I mean, I was just fascinated by this Incan society.
Yes,
and I'm
me
gonna look
too.
into that.
Mm-hmm.
For sure. But
Absolutely.
be careful about them Bilderberg meetings.
Yeah.
That's just going down.
Yeah. Let's go ahead.
I didn't take y'all down. Yeah, you know, like John said, we didn't take y'all down to that
Correct.
road, but there is a road to be gone down
Yeah.
there, and that road leads somewhere.
Be careful,
It's
traveler.
It's dangerous. It's
Be
dangerous
careful,
out here.
traveler.
Especially on the internet.
I would like to also say, like, I'm glad I got to bring up some of the Incan stuff, because I like learning about those societies. I hesitate to say ancient, because they're not that ancient, although some of them, have roots in ancient things. But man, I can't wait to like apply that to the world. Like I love learning about the past and history, and I love seeing the rhythm of the past in today's beat. Like
past in today's beat.
You know what I'm saying though?
God
It's my take on
damn.
that quote. But I like to see it because like you can apply some of those old sounds. Like cuz some of them old sounds, not all of them, don't have the wall of skulls in the Aztec capital.
Chainsaws.
No obsidian
back in the past.
chainsaws in my Neo-Incan revolution.
I was gonna say Neo-Incan for sure.
But
Neo-Incanism, baby.
but when we
Neo-Internetalism Incan.
he said Neo-Interliteral guy, I can't even do it.
Because he's also a neo-internetalist too.
You almost made me say the word Ninkin, which is dangerously close.
So fun.
We'll save that for another time, Internet.
All right, man. Well, with that, we definitely gotta get out of here.
Yeah.
Hey, man, Internet, we appreciate you guys. We'll talk to you soon.